Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fiber Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, Ben White, Maximum Gravy, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B. Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Because I think if you call, if you
can you hear me?
Good morning. Who the hell told Dave Weiss it was okay for him to go debate? That's all I want to talk about this morning.
Well, I heard somebody on Facebook said he did a good job.
Yes, we hear you, Neil.
Well, I mean, people think that Professor Dave is an asshole. I don't see how he did a good job from... Because I'm not thinking in terms of a flat earther. I'm thinking of, well, what can an audience who's trying to make a decision, if they're on the fence, what can they take away from this? Absolutely nothing.
Well, you're not that audience member, so how can you say that? You're part of a different niche. Okay.
No,
so you can't say that.
No. The reasons that I thought certain points weren't because it's like people will, well, why can't we talk about this and this and this and this and this? And it's like, well, against an anti-flat earther, those aren't good arguments, and that's what I saw yesterday.
How do you know
hold
that?
on.
What do you mean? He had a few of his points refuted. What do you mean? Like, regardless of how well he did when he was doing good, that's none. Like, it should never be on. It should never be on. Here's a model that we're losing. We're losing because of something in a model. Like, again, like, if people understood the reason we're here is because there's a lack of evidence for the claims about the geometry of the globe, or the geometric shape that we live on. There's a lack of that. That's really all that the discussion should be about.
Right, but
not about, your model is wrong because this, that, and the third.
I thought we were looking at it from a normie perspective.
Hold on a second.
That's what I'm saying.
Elijah is representative. Elijah is representative of a portion of society, and if he thinks that he didn't do well, then a portion of society will probably agree with him.
Right, but I thought we were looking at the portion of society.
Can you mute Eli? Eli.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you can't look at it that way because not everyone's going to agree whether he did well or not. That's...
Yeah, I was kind of thinking along those lines too.
Come on,
yeah.
You know if somebody did good or not.
One guy thought he did well, and another guy thought he didn't do well. So it's like a matter of like perspective on where they're at in terms of this discussion.
Eli.
Well, anyway, I sorry.
I
opened up.
It's all right. You're opening your mic early, and we're just getting a load of wind noise.
What are we talking about?
I don't know if Dave Weiss's debate with Professor fucking Dave.
What is Righteous saying about one thought he did well? Who thought he did?
Well, I just said that I put I was trying to think like a normie, and I said thinking like that, if I was on the fence, I wouldn't take away that the flat earther was the winner. As a matter of fact, he lost to a few points. And Righteous said, and you can say what you said, Righteous, to that.
Well, I
don't wanna put
was
words in
gonna
your
say,
mouth.
how do you know that if you're not in the norming position? You can't know that. That's all I was saying.
Because objectively,
You can
he
assume.
did lose a couple of points. That's what I'm basing it off of.
Which points?
But you're basing it
Points that are straw man's that he didn't have to take.
I hear you, Eli. I hear you.
Okay, but you don't know how this comes across to a normie who doesn't understand the arguments like we do. You don't know how it comes across as well.
I'm not talking about understanding. I'm talking about losing a point. And if a person should go and investigate further, it's like, that's kind of right.
Can I ask a question? I haven't listened to anything. So, Eli, obviously you listened. Righteous, did you listen to the same recording that Eli listened to in full?
No, I just seen somebody on Facebook said he did a good job. That's all I said.
Okay, well, someone
So
thought
to one
Virus.
man-
Hang on. Someone thought Virus and Zanuck did a good job. Does that mean they did?
I'm not saying either or. I'm just saying it's like from your it's basically like the whole beauties and the eye.
Why are you here
kind of thing, right?
today to defend this specific?
I know. Hang on,
with
Eli.
That's what
fire
I'm
and
wondering.
brimstone.
Okay, why are you so triggered about it, Eli? Hold on, everyone calm down. You're jumping down his throat like he's not allowed to have an opinion. Okay, he is. But why are you so triggered about it, Eli?
Because this would be the one, like, why?
Hang on, Eli.
Okay, why am I so triggered by Dave Weiss and Professor Dave, or why am I so triggered by Righteous? Which one?
No, why are you so triggered by Dave's performance?
Oh, well, I'm not surprised at Dave's performance. I'm triggered because he should have never been the person to have that conversation, specifically because I can't even call Professor Dave an anti-flat earther yet because, and you know why? Even after yesterday, I can't categorize him as an anti-flat earther because none of the glow points have been put to him.
Still don't understand your beef with Dave. Your criticism seems to be with Dave's poor performance. Now, I didn't see the show and got in touch with Dave saying...
No, my criticism...
Okay, you really triggered Eli. Triggered. Hello? Middle of a sentence.
Well, you told me what it seems to be. That's why.
Yeah.
So, my bad. I'll let you finish and I'll say no.
Okay. So, I contacted Dave prior to watching it because loads of people got in touch with me, and I'm not even kidding. Plenty of people got in touch and said, Dave's done terribly. And the sentiment was the same as yours, which was to say, he hasn't done well. Why is he having these discussions? Why isn't he pointing out this, that, and the other? So I got in touch and said, have you done badly? And I didn't get a response, but I thought, well, it's easy enough. He sent me the link. I'll just watch it. So I did. And I don't think he did particularly badly. Do I think he's at the tip of the spear the same as us? No, I don't.
All right, there you go.
Okay, but still...
so the answer to your question, why am I triggered? But, okay, fine, 10th. Go ahead.
Still, I never got to finish. Why is Righteous even saying anything when he hasn't even watched it?
Still entitled to an opinion.
I'm not saying anything.
He said specifically, hold on. He specifically noted that he's seen a comment on Facebook, which is the general consensus, which was what was being discussed, that he did well. What's wrong with that?
No, you're missing the point here. I haven't seen it. I can't comment either way. So if I run across a comment that says he did poorly, I could say, well, there's a comment that he said poorly. And someone says, well, what do you think? I go, I don't know. I haven't watched it.
Okay.
That's what Righteous
by the
is
same
saying.
token,
He did do that. He did do that.
Sure, but by the same token,
he said somewhat.
Dave's performance is very much under scrutiny, for whatever reason. Now, I've watched dozens of Dave's discussions on various different platforms, and I applaud him, because he's out there doing it. Now, I'm not calling you armchair quarterbacks, but by the same token, he is actually out there doing it. Does that mean that, by our standards, he's going to do what we expect of him? Well, why are we expecting anything of him? Do you know what I mean? I don't really get it.
I don't get why they don't use our arguments. Why don't they just listen to our show?
That's exactly what he's saying. He doesn't have to do that. I understand that. I'm not expecting him to do that. In a scenario, if I would have said hypothetically, what if Dave and Dave got together and had a debate? I would have thought that's a terrible idea. I hope that never happens, because Dave is good at doing interviews, and to the person that the casual observer, when he's talking to them, he eases them into the conversation, and that's fine, and he's knowledgeable, and the things he's knowledgeable in, and that's cool. When you're talking to potentially an anti-flat earther or a staunch glober, you don't want to be throwing the words science around out of context.
Let me ask you a question.
Hold on.
But that's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Thank you for telling me it's your opinion. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Can you pop yourself on mute? It's getting tiresome because everybody's triggered with Dave. It's got tiresome for the last 12 straight hours, if I'm honest, the amount of bloody messages I've had about this. Right. Dave's decided to up his game, as far as I'm concerned, to enter into debates. What he'll quickly find, and it's the sole cause of your frustration as far as I can tell so far, is that he's putting forward arguments that are easily taken apart in debate by anti-flat earthers. Yeah, he'll find that out quick enough, won't he? Now, for all the people who spent the last 3 years since I appeared on Globebusters telling me and everybody who participates with this show how wrong we are about science when they utilise it and then get their arse handed to them, they'll quickly learn that our way's better. Or they'll get their arse handed to them repeatedly. That's their choice. We are right in this respect. We know what science is, and we've attempted, to disseminate that to the rest of our brethren in the flat earth community. Hasn't been accepted. Quite the contrary, me personally, were cast down for doing so. Now, when that results in people getting their ass handed to them in debate, they'll either learn or they won't. Now, I'm not levelling this at Dave specifically, I'm talking about anybody. But when it does come to Dave specifically, I applaud him. Number one, he's bloody out there. Yeah, on his own time, on his own coin, doing his own thing, proactively promoting this subject. Now, yeah, I can understand us levelling a bit of constructive criticism at him. We want him to do better. But that doesn't mean he's in any way your opener when you said, why is he in front of people? What? Who the hell are you to say why is he in front of... Because he's got out there and actually put himself in that position, that's why. Well, good for him. And I don't want to see Dave fail in these arguments. And when he contacted me about any tips for this particular discussion, I said, you'll do fine. He just uses fallacy, which is absolutely true. I was going to do a video response. I just didn't have enough time to go through the dozens and dozens and dozens of fallacies used by Professor Dave. Right? I just don't have the time to do it. Nor do I have the time, unfortunately, for Dave, if you want to look at it that way, our Dave, Dave Weiss, the time to educate him proficiently in logical fallacy to prepare him for that sort of discussion. That's something that you acquire over a very lengthy period of time, and I can't disseminate that to him through a Skype comment. I want to, but I can't. Now, all we can do to resolve this is what we are doing. Lay it on the table in the most concise possible way. Science is on our side in the flat earth, if you know what it is. If you don't, you're going to have your ass handed to you, because they'll be using the same magic trick you are when you don't know what science is and you start ascribing it to things that aren't science. They'll just use the same trick and win. Their little bullshit magic trick with science is far more developed than yours, Mr. Flat Earther who doesn't know what science is. Now, we can disseminate that information, but as for twisting people's arms behind their back and saying, why are you in front of this person debating? Really, that should be left to the people who know what... What an outrage! There was a time when I didn't say a damn word on this show. It was my show called Flat Earth Debate, and I was pummeled into the corner daily because I didn't know what I was doing. But at some point, I had to jump in the deep end and go, I don't know how to argue these points. I better bloody learn. Well, Dave's doing that. He should be commended.
I have a question. Hold on. I got a question. How did this debate come about? Who challenged who? Because I find it funny that Professor Dave never comes over here.
Because Dave Weiss orchestrated it in some fashion or reacted to it in some fashion that meant it happened. So, same goes for Professor Dave and for Sean Atwood. Between them, they put it together. That's how it happened, like anything. Why is that even a discussion point? Because really, they should have been talking to us.
Here.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying,
we don't have because he has an app, something that I guess Professor Dave can actually address. They agreed to the debate. They got together. I think they had that guy Atwood as a mutual contact. That's how it happened. And I mean, Dave Weiss is in a lot of places that you're like, how do you get there? Well, again, like Nathan said, he's working hard. I do commend him for that. I do commend him for that. My commentary is the same as it would be if I were talking about two boxers. I don't think it's unfair to do that.
I'm just saying,
but am I talking? Am I talking?
Neil, can you not hear him? Go on.
So am I talking him down? Not necessarily. I guess you understand my frustration, because my sentiment exactly when I was watching it, I was over at 24/7, and I said, yo, this is the exact all the times you guys think I'm being mean and pedantic about certain points. This is exactly why you want to get tighter on what it is you want to be claiming, what you don't want to be claiming, not using logical fallacies, because to me it was a demonstration of why you don't do that. But
okay, that's fair enough, and I agree with you from a constructive criticism point of view. No worries, and I know Dave well enough to know that he'll take all of those on board and thank you for them. What I won't be pleased with is people saying, oh, well, why is he in that position? Well, because he's bloody hard working and he's put himself there, that's why. That's the only reason. But in terms of where he could go from here, isn't it a lot nicer to know that somebody who has got their head above the parapet, being shot at repeatedly and getting crap from his own side right now, is actually attempting to strive for a better discussion, strive for better in terms of his aspirations to debate. Now, he will find his own route in that. That is to say that in terms of the model-based arguments that we have had for years and years and years in terms of calling models pseudoscience, calling it a reification fallacy, defining why we don't ascribe to them here. Now, Dave's got some investment in models. That's not my problem. That's his problem. He can either choose to address it. I have personally talked to Dave about this model stuff in no uncertain terms, I assure you, and other people who are prevalent in the Flat Earth community. But in person with Mark Sargent, I sat across a desk with him at one of the shows and discussed this with him in person. And he gave me all of his reasons, and I accepted them. Same with Dave. Okay, I'm laying out why it might end up with you getting annihilated, but your reasons are your reasons. If you want to see it as a tool useful for newbie flat earthers, then fine. That's justifiable. Does that tool for newbie flat earthers work when you're debating an anti-flat earther? No! As we've all moaned about for the last 20 minutes, right? No, it doesn't. But you've got to learn that yourself. You can't just say, well, you shouldn't be in front of people debating.
Well, I'm going to try to
you're right. Hold on a second.
Forget it.
Let me just say,
Neil was first, Righteous. Hold on.
Neil's
been trying to get a word in. Go ahead, Neil, then Righteous.
I'm going to try and orchestrate a debate with Professor Dave to come on this show, because I'm sure he knows we're down the block. Holy shit.
Yeah, and the door's open. There's no invitations here. Nobody needs to be invited. The door's open. It's a public arena. He can stroll in if he chooses to. Do I want to proactively get in touch with Prof. Dave and ask him if he wants to interact with us? I don't need to. If he wants to, he will. He can if he chooses to. Again, same principle applies. Why would I put Professor Dave, his arm up against his back? No, there's no need.
You don't find he picked and chose?
Oh, hold on.
You don't find that he picked his opponent? You don't find that he knew that he could get the best of Dave Weiss? I think they're picking and choosing who they want to debate with.
So wouldn't you do that?
Sorry, yes. Did somebody prove a ball last night or something?
No.
Oh, what are we on about then?
No, I'm just boo-hooing about.
We got that, Eli. Sorry, Eli. Really sorry. Ooh. Go ahead, Righteous. Ooh. Sorry, we've heard that you're boo-hooing.
Righteous, yeah, you're right.
Go ahead, Righteous.
I can agree with what you said and even testify to what you said, because how do I put it? He's just getting in this ring, and he's just learning the steps. We should be encouraging him, not discouraging him.
Absolutely.
Even me, when I got, and I was following you guys for a while, it's not the same listening and actually participating. I started participating when I got on Discord, and I quickly learned, like, hey, it's a different process, listening and participating. So if David Wise is just learning how to participate, we should be encouraging him, not discouraging him. Like
Absolutely.
Nathan said.
I think the guy was called.
I encourage him. I agree with everything Nathan said prior. I do encourage him. I will also give constructive criticism. I definitely am. I promote all his stuff and I listen to it weekly. So this is not me going, oh, Dave, why he's a anything anyone else is saying. I'm not saying any of that. The only reason that I'm annoyed is because, well, I'm the one that's been crying about we need a higher card bout. I want to see heavyweights go at it. And I know Dave is good for what he's good for against someone who is, well, at least as far as we know, a staunch glober. I just didn't, I wanted to see a different fight, but you know what? I should be encouraging my brother. You're right.
Right, Dave's very tenacious. I assure you, I give you my personal guarantee, Dave will be at the tip of the spear within no time at all. I absolutely guarantee it. There's no doubt in my mind. He's easily capable.
Well, I just have a point to make on that. The model statement that you shouldn't use models, because Ken Hovind I heard him say that when he was arguing this, he wouldn't do it unless a flat earther chose a model so that he could hold his model up against it. So I did that. I have chosen a model. I told Ken Hovind that I'd like to debate him. I have a model in mind that I will defend vehemently.
Oh, yeah, this sounds good.
Wow, I listened to a show by Kent Hovind the other day, and I was being a troll in chat, saying, "Wake up, Earth is flat. When are you going to address this nonsense?"
Well,
okay, so just out of interest, I mean, what model had you got planned to defend, John?
I'm going to defend the celestial sphere flat Earth model.
Perfect. So the same model that they utilised to turn into an actual sphere, then. So you both got the same origins. That sounds like an interesting discussion, and it adheres to his model affliction for his false dichotomy fallacy that he must have to debate us. So, Kent, apparently, from what I understand, admittedly second-hand, you must argue within a false dichotomy fallacy. Has nobody explained what a false dichotomy is to Ken Hovind? Oh, let me be the first to tell you. Well, you put two options against each other, and there might be more options. Neither option might be true, but you must argue within those two options of models. We don't live on a model, Kent. That's a reification fallacy. Neither are where we stand. Neither are the ground beneath our feet. Ergo, your false dichotomy fallacy would mean that you only debate flat Earth within a fallacy. That's pretty pathetic, Kent.
Also, all the models that he is attempting to utilize are flat Earth models.
He'll find that out soon enough when he takes you up on your challenge, given that you have reached his stipulations of arguing within a false dichotomy with a model. He just doesn't know yet that the model you'll be using will be the same as his and flat.
Hopefully he won't listen to any of this, and he'll just come in cold. Oh, I can't wait.
Well, see, that's the thing. His model is also flat. He just doesn't realize it yet.
That's what I'm saying. I hope he don't listen to any of the shows.
Just one more note on DITRH, which is to say that prior to a guy called Rebel, do you all remember Rebel? Yeah, we all remember him. Really, really distinctly. Oh, well, that's good to know, because obviously that would be helpful for my little story.
No, I don't. Hence the quietness, not a nod. Rebel.
He was one of the participants on the show. Anyway, he used to come on and sit in the panel and, occasionally he'd say something. And he'd critique me in the comments for being too harsh. You'd be far more effective if you didn't lose your rag with these people. I mean, don't you realise that blah, 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 and all the constructive criticism that we've heard today. And then, about 6 months later, he came back to me and said, yeah, I've just spent a reasonable portion of my life debating people. And I just want to give out my heartfelt apologies because now I've actually got involved with it and lost my rag repeatedly, I understand where you're coming from. Now
I know who you're talking about.
Rebel, his name was. But the point is that for anybody who is an armchair quarterback and then suddenly gets into the discussion, they realise where all the pitfalls are real fast, because he'll be dwelling on it. DITRH immediately released a trimmed up video of it with all the ad homs. Great, but that means it's weighing heavy on his mind. He immediately wants to trim it up and, put his position forward in the strongest way possible, as you would as a videographer. Good for you, Dave. But by the same token, it's weighing heavy because you know where your failures lie. And as much as I hate to say it, in all the other discussions I've seen DITRH have, it's been the same failures. They've just never been put up against an anti-flat earther to have them ripped apart in the same way they were by Professor Dave. Along with all the ad homs and distractions and over-talking, and my God, Professor Dave, learn how to use a mic. Do you think you need to have your lips touching the damn thing so it clips so horrendously? Oh my God, learn how to use a mic, you daft idiot.
Well, that's another thing. I was actually upset. Another point of frustration was because I was upset for Dave. Because I'm like, he's being a real a-hole, and Dave was trying to get it to a reasonable, discussion, but he just wouldn't be reasonable. He was very rude.
Yeah, and by comparison to what we get here, would you say I'm going to put a comparative percentage on how Professor Dave behaved compared to what we have to deal with here? And I'm going to say that Dave Weiss experienced approximately 10% on the scale. Would you agree? In terms of fundy asshole, muting, over-talking, begging the question fallacies, rumpusing, talking so loud through your mic that everybody other than you is distorted. All of the crap tricks he used at some stage, but not all at once for the entirety of his discussions. So I would say it was about 10%. Anybody advance 10%? Feel it was much more severe than that for DITRH?
Maybe 20%.
Okay, I could easily go with that, 20%. Yeah, in other words, we have 5 times as much hell when we have our dealings with these sorts of people. So I'm not saying he got off lightly. He got a taste of it. I still applaud him. I'm glad he got that baptism of fire. DITRH. You have to have it at some point.
Well, I was going to say that I don't have a problem with him arguing with the model, right? But he needs to understand their model, too. And maybe this will help him. You do have private contact with him. Could you just explain to him that the model that Professor Dave is holding up is actually a flat Earth model?
Dave watches the show.
Oh, he does?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll bring it up on the live show then.
Perfect.
I'll bring up the Hovind thing.
I'm happy to keep this discussion going, just based purely on the amount of contact I've had over it.
Just on that, just before we start the show, I don't think Dave did actually too bad, because as long as someone is allowed to get away with insulting and ad hominem like he was doing, your man Professor Dave was doing, as long as someone's allowed to get away with those tactics, no matter what argument you have, it won't be heard.
I had no idea this even went on till just now.
It's a good point. I agree, Brian. There were certain discussion points that Dave got 60% through in his mind were good arguing points that if he'd have just got to the end in a concise manner, they'd have been capable of being challenged and debated about. But instead, you'd have the other Dave, not a Professor Dave, right up on his mic going, no, that's just dumb, and various other things just straight through the top of him. Yeah? Like I say, about 10% of the level that we get here, in my opinion. But that was frustrating for Dearth, so even if he had the best, most concise points in the world, unless he can talk at 300 miles an hour like I do, and incorporate in very detailed, concise descriptions of things that have been debunked, like begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking, Earth curve calculator, you've got to be able to get that in within 4 seconds before they talk through you for that to work. Those are all skills that need to be developed over a time to combat that sort of obfuscation and like what we call fundy muting.
I don't believe that you were sat in a corner. There's no way. There's no way in your own show that you were in a corner And you learned all of this, Nathan. Do not believe
really?
that.
Go back to any show pre-100.
Really?
Yeah, go back and listen to some of the old shows while I got pummeling day in, day out.
Yes, he I brought up at one time when someone said there's a downward acceleration, it was due to electromagnetism, and you were like, interesting. Thank you for being at the tip of the spear, Zach Sabala. I was like, no.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, live, Dearth versus Professor Dave Special Edition. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by 10th Man, Neil, Eli, Refracted Curvature, Arwin, Brian's Logic, 10th Man, Mitchell from Australia, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello.
Hey everyone.
Good afternoon.
G'day.
Just for
G'day.
the record, I had nothing bad to say about the boss. Eli, you're getting docked in pay. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah, no blasphemy.
Obviously, there's people that have just tuned in live, so I might as well preface what's going on. So in the pre-show and all night, I had messages constantly about Dave Weiss and his discussion with Professor Dave. Now, there's mixed opinions about how well Dave has done. All I am interested in is the commendation that Dave receives as a result of him actually going out there and doing this off his own back, in his own time, at his own detriment in this instance, if that is the case. But that is what we're going to be discussing for the most part. So we are going to forego housekeeping, unless this conversation dies on its arse within a few minutes. But yeah, so we're going to carry on as we were in the pre-show for all of you, just getting you up to date in terms of how this discussion will carry on as it did in the pre-show. Subscribe to my second channel or become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. If you do want to hear that in its entirety, it gets published after the live show and after show gets finished recording on this channel and comes out in a few days' time on my second channel. Subscribe today. So, where do we begin in terms of this discussion? Who wants to kick off?
I couldn't even watch more than
I had
5
Brian
seconds.
first.
Yeah.
Sorry, Arwin. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Arwin. Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, very simply, Brian went and watched it. I watched it this morning. It was hard to watch because it was obvious that there was no moderation going on, which is the very reason why Professor Dave would never debate anyone who's been used to debating, because if you're in a situation where there is someone who's, regardless of what side they're on, if he's in a debate where there has to be moderation, and there is an experienced moderator, then he'll have to be quiet. He'll be told to shut up. He's not allowed at home, not allowed over talk, and his levels of his mic will be kept in check. Whereas what was happening with David Weiss was Dave, the other Dave, not the Professor Dave, his mic, right? He had a good mic, and his gains way up. So every time he's talked, he was over-talking David Weiss. So as David Weiss was speaking, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with how David argued it, as David Weiss was speaking, nobody got to hear what he was saying because the other Dave was going, yeah, well, that's what stupid people would say, all this nonsense over the top of them. So it wouldn't matter how good your arguments were, under those circumstances, people aren't going to get to hear it. So the best thing you can probably do is, under those circumstances, for David Weiss would be just get smart back with him or whatever, just ruin him as he's talking, just overtalk him, because that's really all you can do, because that's the tactics he's using. So in the end of the day, no one got to really hear what David Weiss had to say because the other idiot wouldn't shut up, and that was his tactics. Now, as Adam said a few minutes ago, there was no globe proven last night, and there's never going to be. What I did notice is I looked at the comments, and there was a lot of people, and they weren't even flat earthers, and they were saying that was atrocious from this guy, Professor Dave, who's not a professor. He was getting basically a lot of stick in comments for his bad behaviour. So
fair enough. We'll get to Arwen in a second. Shout out to Michael Khan, who says, support Nathan. God bless all. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, Michael Khan. Also, Godzilla says, you can't tell me what to do. I won't support Nathan. Oh, wait. I did that with a super chat. Thank you very much indeed for the super chats, lads. Thank you, Godzilla37. Go ahead, Arwen.
Well, my testimony is very short. I clicked the video, then I saw the face of the guy that was running the show for 5 seconds, then I almost threw up, and I thought, I'm not going to watch this.
Hey, I like Sean Atwood. I'm a big fan of Sean's. I really like his stuff. I've watched all of his videos.
I'd like to...
Go on, Brian again. Go ahead, John.
I would like to say that we are the tip of the spear, because as far as this discussion goes, the debate is over. We could concede to all their nonsense, and it would still require a flat Earth. That's how far we've progressed.
Yeah, thanks to people like Brian.
I don't see any...
Go on, sorry.
I don't see any point... I was going to say, I don't see any point in getting upset with Dave for his first toe being put in the water and it being, attacked the way it is. It ain't going to take him long. So
I was making the point just as you were starting the show, Nathan. I've not seen it, so I can't say, but I've watched many of Dave's, and he represents us exceptionally well on much bigger platforms with in, I think, much more genuine circumstances. So what I'm hearing there is, if there's going to be any criticism, it's not, first of all, cheers, Dave, for standing up and having the nuts to do it. Yeah. So, but if there's going to be any criticism, it's not his defense of flat Earth. It's his technique, not having decent moderated debates, but his technique of how to deal with specific anti-flat earthers. And I think from what Brian's just said and what you alluded to, I think you said 10%, about 20%, but it's first toe in the water of actually dealing with dishonest debaters. And they criticize you for poor manners, which is getting loud, but actually from what I'm hearing, that's exactly what went on there. He wasn't given an opportunity to talk. He's talked over constantly. And for me, I'd just say, welcome to Flat Earth debate.
Absolutely. That was my sentiment at the end of it. Absolutely identical. Yeah, welcome to Flat Earth debate. And I had a little smile to myself. I was like, good. It's good to see Dave moving on. He's going to be good at this. Brilliant. But then I got so many messages. I'm like, what the hell? Well, it was actually prior to that. I'm getting the timeline a little bit out of order. But starts off with a load of messages. And prior to seeing the video, I got in touch with Dave. I'm like, have you not done well? Because I didn't know. I was like, what? And they didn't reply. So I thought, I'll just watch it. So I did. And I thought, this is all right. What's the big deal? I don't get it. Yeah, he could have done better. But he's entering into a style of discussion that he's not necessarily that familiar with. And a lot of the things that he'll have heard us saying and potentially disagreed with internally, let's just say models as a specific thing, right? We bark on all day about, I'm not going to get held to task by some model you've ascribed to me. Well, in terms of, let's take it away from Death, let's use Mark Sargent. When I discussed it with Mark Sargent, he gave me all of his reasons for why he would prefer to keep hold of that model and utilise it as a tool for educational purposes for newbies into the subject. Well, that's a perfectly justifiable reason until someone slams you against the wall with it and puts you up against a false dichotomy. Now, you'll learn that with time, that you'd rather not be in a position defending something that you haven't validated and is a reification fallacy in the first place. But as I said in the pre-show, it's nice to know that Dave's got somewhere to go. It's not that he's just gone on a show and then, to the perception of some, done badly. And then, what's he going to do now? Hopefully he'll do better with the next guy. No, he can advance his arguments, significantly advance them, through us. Subscribe today. But what I'm saying is, he's got somewhere to go, hasn't he? You can imagine in your mind the next time him getting around some fundy obfuscation with a tactic or a technique he's learned from us. We can offer that. And I'm not going to be embarrassed or shy to say that we can offer that. I'm very proud of the fact that we offer that. And now we've got a reason to say, it's there for the taking, just got to pay attention. Listen to us talk about fallacies. Maybe go back and listen to a few of the fallacy shows. Maybe listen and pay attention when we're talking about models. Again, I'm not talking specifically to DITRH. I'm talking in a general context for all audience members. And there'll be a certain percentage of them who watch Dave, had maybe higher expectations, like with Toon and Craig, and then suddenly reassess their values in this arena as a result of it. Also very positive. So as a direct result of Dave, if you perceive him to have done well, which I don't, frankly, I think he did all right. I think the opponent, Professor Dave, cast his side of the argument in a very poor light. And when I went through the comments, I didn't spend a great deal of time. That was the sentiment of the commenters as well. Regardless of what side of the argument they fell, it seemed, they were highly critical of Prof. Dave and his attitude during that discussion. So it didn't serve him it didn't do him any favours. But it's enough for me to know that there is progression to be had for DITRH in terms of him doing that. I hope Dave becomes better than all of us at this. I hope he starts putting us to shame and he becomes the tip of the spear in that regard. That'd be wonderful. It'd be nice to know there's somewhere to go further that someone else has to offer. That's to some that you might think, oh, you arrogant prick. You think you're at the absolute cutting edge of this argument. Yes, I absolutely know it. So when it comes to constructive criticism, we're the people to give it. That's why I will title this show in response to that discussion and hope it's well received. Not by DITRH. DITRH's a mate of mine. I talk to DITRH. But by anybody who's watching on the periphery that has an opinion. Anybody outside, that was a big waffle by me.
They're very, very different approaches. And like I said, I respect Dave for what he's done outside of this environment. He doesn't come here. But what he has been doing is going on shows and talking to people, explaining to people. Well, if you try and do that with fallacy-spitting anti-flat earthers, that's what they want. Genuine people that want to share knowledge. That's not how you debate an anti-flat earther. You got to tie them to their argument. Yeah, and that to me is all that happened last night. Ouch! And like I said, welcome to flat Earth debate. But as you say, Dave's a highly intelligent man that's been at the front of this. You know, promoting this topic. It's not going to take him long to learn technique of how to deal with very rude fallacy-spitting anti-flat earthers.
You can kind of tell that he's been listening to the show because of the spectroscopy argument he gave in the beginning.
Just reiterate it for the audience. There's plenty of people who haven't watched Elbow. Or, how do I say your name?
Elbow. It's El Boricua? It's just Elbow.
El Boricua? Beautiful. Just lay it out because there's going to be people who haven't watched.
So the argument in the beginning, where the question was about gravity, and then he brought up the stars, and he said, "Well, can you tell what they are?" And Professor Dave said, "Well, spectroscopy, yada yada yada." And then Dave Wise answered back, "Well, spectroscopy measures the gas, and what are you measuring? What are you seeing? What are you measuring? The thing between us here and there, or the actual star?" And then, Dave Wise, when in his tirade.
Okay.
What it was is that where Dave was going wrong is when you listen to David Weiss when he's explaining things to people, he'll go through 4 or 5 points really fast, and he's talking fast. But he was switching between that and trying to deal with the arguments that I'm just going to say Professor Dave, I know he's not a professor, I'm just going to say it because he calls himself that Professor Dave was putting forward. And he was trying to argue against the spectroscopy. Now, Professor Dave was not allowing him to do it. But where David Weiss was going wrong is he didn't have the right terminology. So because his terminology was slightly out, Professor Dave was jumping on him for that. But the truth be told, if one of us was there and we used the correct terminology, Professor Dave may not even, I'm not going to even say what it is because I don't want him to know, because Professor Dave may not even realize that's the correct terminology. So this is the thing about him. He was pretending to have knowledge he didn't have, and David Weiss was trying to switch between what he normally does and actually debate an anti-flat earther. We would have held Professor Dave to task on the very first statement he made for the whole debate, regardless of what topic came up. Yeah, we would have been.
I agree. I just don't want that to be the comparison of the show. I'm really sorry to do this to you, Brian. It just happens to have fallen on you. Yes, from this point forward, let's just say it goes without saying, in the same circumstances, any one of us would have smashed Dave for a whole number of logical fallacies he employed. You know, antipodal positioning, gravity, you name it, he used them all. So, yeah, I'm confident that all of us would have done a better job. That is not the point, and I don't want that to be focused on like we're comparing us to Dave. That's not fair.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that any one of us would have gone about it a bit different, but I must go back to my original statement, is that under those circumstances, I can't guarantee that even if I was there or anyone else was there, that my arguments or any of your arguments would get heard because they were being allowed to be overtalked and David Weiss was being allowed to be insulted. So when that is going on, what it is good for is it shows people why, Nathan, your show is run the way it's run, and why you have to sometimes mute these people, or QE might mute them inside, or Eli inside in a Discord, because otherwise they'll do their best to stop your argument from being heard. So I don't even know if my arguments would have gotten through. Just 1 second. Because of the way it was being run, but I just would have done it a bit different from Dave. But I don't know still if I would have kept my cool as well as Dave.
I agree. Dave, in many respects, admittedly, he did throw a few ad homs back, tit for tat, but easily forgivable, because he kept his cool for the majority of the time. Excellent. And in terms of you saying that Sean Atwood isn't necessarily the best person to, I know you're not saying that directly, but you're inferring it, by not shutting people down when they're over-talking and not allowing the arguments to be heard. Well, Sean's an ex-con, and I once heard him describe prison mentality as being high school rules with deadly consequences. Yeah? Well, this is the same as we have here. It's just without the deadly consequences. Instead of deadly consequences, paradigm-changing consequences. But with high school rules attached. That's what we're dealing with. We're dealing in that similar sort of arena, which is why when I saw the connection between... I don't want to say fantasised, but daydreamed about exactly this scenario with Sean at the helm, because I think he's absolutely ideal because of his background. He knows how cut and, how vicious you can be in these sorts of arenas. And when it comes to, I said this a few shows back, changing an onlooker's worldview in a very real way, that's a pretty big deal. And it's not dealt with in an intellectual way. It's not dealt with on an academic level. It's dealt with in a high school way, isn't it? So seeing it happen and unfold on what could be perceived as a neutral platform is perfect as far as I'm concerned, because it parallels what we see all the time perfectly.
What did he say prison was like?
I agree.
Can you repeat that?
High school rules, or high school mentality, the behaviour of the inmates, with deadly consequences.
That's exactly perfect. Perfect. That's exactly what prison is.
Well, I agree with. I agree. I'm glad that you guys have given me this. Well, I mean, I guess I agreed with you guys because that was really my sentiment. I was just expressing it poorly and upset that again, it was moderated, or there was lack of moderation the way that there was. And I figured, dang, man, I wish, and it's not like Dave and I speak, or we've had one conversation in 24/7 in passing, but I would have said, hey, Dave, he's a staunch Glober and potentially an anti-flat earther. We don't know yet because we haven't exactly pressed him on the tenets of the globe specifically and the geometry and all of that, blah, 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 blah. So it's like, I wish I could have said, Dave, you can't speak to him like you do when you're interviewing people. This guy is going to try to throw the kitchen sink at you. And he's going to try to stop you from making your points, and he's going to try to reverse the burden of proof and all of these other things. And that's just something that nobody wants to see happen, especially when they like someone. And I like Dave, and I like the stuff that he does. So, but again, you're right. Where can he go from here? Only up. So it's interesting because of the caliber of people he can get in contact with. Who knows how good the next showing will be? It just opens the door for the conversation.
I would like to give Dave some constructive criticism about his model argument, because I'm going to use it against Ken Hovind. And that's when they want to discuss models, they're always going to utilize a flat earth model. So if they try to draw you into that false dichotomy, take their model away from them. First step. Because it's our model. It's a flat earth celestial sphere. It's not a round earth celestial sphere.
That's what years over at flat earth debates do. You when Brian said I wouldn't have argued it like this, all of us know that if we were going to deal with emissions, we go straight to spectrochocoloscopy, and we know the argument and what to do there. But that takes time and repetition, fundamentally, to have that argument at hand and to keep them on track. And I don't think if that first, let's say, I've not watched it, but I wouldn't be looking at it trying to score points. By the sounds of it, it wasn't a very good debate to kind of mark it on that criteria anyway. But fundamentally, what's happened is what's always happened. Ballers' inherent bad behavior and their prime argument being that we're retarded. And from the comments Nathan said he's read and stuff, that appears to have been received by both sides and noted by the neutrals. That's a big win for me.
Yeah, it's now reaching the point where instead of it being a tiny little corner of us, the stupid idiots that nobody's aware of, being told how stupid we are by people who are obviously far more intelligent, and that's just accepted because we all know as a standard that they're far less intelligent than us. However, when you've got somebody that's trying to make a point and is consistently giving out information, this is Dave Weiss, and all that's happening is, no, you're an idiot, no, it doesn't work, over the top of it, people just think, why? The guy doesn't sound like an idiot. He just sounds like he's trying to get a point out and you're stopping him. Obfuscating the point.
I was just going to say, I wasn't attacking him. I was just saying as a constructive, if he wants to build on his model argument.
Oh, no, I'm going to go on from that in a second, John. Your point's fantastic. In fact, it's the point I want to focus on from here on forward. In fact, I'll do that now. What John has just said is the most critical detail in the debate to date for a flat earther. Because we now have a positive claim of a flat earth with evidence that's utilised daily across the plane we live on to find where you are if you're lost. In planes, trains and automobiles, they can all use it. And they do. And it's very well documented in terms of how it's used. So we've got the standard in terms of how it's defined and what it does and the process it uses. That's celestial navigation. Because of which we have a positive claim for Earth being flat. And further to that claim is the requirement the globe has to use the exact same things we're using in our positive assertion. Ergo, the globe model requires and is built on a flat plane. So what John is saying is, when they start asserting that they've got a sphere, take them back to how their sphere was built. Off a flat plane. And you immediately take away their model. They won't want to talk about their model. They won't want to utilise their model, because what is their model? Their model is a utilisation of a flat plane and the angle measurements taken from it. This is the most important debating point to date.
Because it's not debated. It's accepted. And that's why it's so devastating.
Yeah, I agree. And Dave Weiss actually had a couple of strong points, but I think, like Brian pointed out, sometimes he he touches on them, but I would have liked to see him like drill it into Dave. One of the things is, the horizon not being geometric. And another thing he touched on is like stars, what are they? And balls of gas. And then immediately Professor Dave strawmanned him by saying that he thinks it's like tiny little balls of fire, whatever. But when he was explaining what a star is, it's like, well, again, all Dave would have had to say was, oh, yeah, and how did it get to that point, seeing as that gases aren't attracted to each other? How does it ever get to a point where there's all of these nuclear reactions going on if the gas isn't attracted to each other and it will expand to fill the available volume? Seeing as that the space that everything expanded into was essentially empty.
Yeah, Dave knows the arguments. Like I say, it's not like he's far off the tip of the spear. Quite the contrary. There's just a little bit of spit and polish that needs adding to some of his arguments. An example would be when he said we see too far. Now, if you're a fan of this show, you'll know that we, or I personally, detest that argument. Right? We don't see too far, we just see. The only reason it's asserted as being too far is when you take the assumption of a sphere Earth getting in the way with a physical horizon being a limitation to your view, as per the curve maths. But that would lead you as a flat earther to say, we see too far? No, we don't see too far, we just see. The too far bit allows them to say, well, too far compared to the Earth curve that should get in the way. Here's why it hasn't. So we're all on the same tip, right? We're all arguing about why Earth curve should or shouldn't get in the way, how far is too far compared to Earth curve. Well, that's the trap. We point that out. That's something that, with a little bit of spit and polish, instead of we see too far, we see this item that's not physical horizon. It's debunked. Horizon's not Earth curve. Make it as a statement rather than seeing too far compared to a calculation of Earth curve and how much it says we see. Therefore too far? No, that's not correct. But it's not far off the tip of the spear, is it? Let's be honest.
Every time you say you see too far, you're right on the sphere with them. I don't like it at all.
Yeah, but that just means
it allows them to put it into the calculator. When you say, well, we see too far, well, let's look at it in the calculator.
Yeah,
right.
Let's see if you're right. Let's see if it is too far compared to the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator. And if it is, well, then we can all massage it with a bit of refraction based on an R value that we can no longer see or measure if we're moving the horizon or the target, because nothing's where it's supposed to be. But we're all under the assumption that we're going to decide what's too far based on there being an Earth curve obstruction at the horizon. Well, we've debunked that. Therefore, not too far, just we see if we're on a flat Earth. There's a clock. There's a town. I see it because it's there. No explanation is actually required when you just look at something and see it. But if you see it and it's not supposed to be there because it's too far, suddenly there's an explanation needed by a globe Earth. We don't need to pander to them and say that we're seeing too far when we just see things.
It's like saying, everybody back on the ball.
Well, one of the things that I would have attempted, well, anything I say here and I have said, remember my original statement was that under those conditions, I don't know if anything I would have to say would get heard, right, under the conditions that David Weiss was dealing with. But there was a few things that I would have done a lot of things a bit different from Dave, but a lot of answers that Dave gave that I would have given, I just would have given them with a little bit more meat on the bones. But there was certain knowledge that I suppose I have, and not every other flat earther has sometimes, is to do with the globe arguments. Because I heard several globe arguments from one or two main ones from Professor Dave that he had wrong. He had his own arguments wrong.
Yep.
Go on, give us an example.
I would have been correcting him on that.
Yeah, feel free, give us an example.
Well, First of all, he started off with, I'll give you one of the best examples, was his claim that 3 people, right, one in Southern Australia, one in South Africa, and one in South America, can at any time look into the sky at the and see the Southern Cross, right? All 3 people at one time can see the Southern Cross in the sky, right, from these 3 different locations. What he doesn't realise is that claim is not the Southern Cross, right? That is Sigma Octantis, not the Southern Cross, right? Number 1. Number 2, what he doesn't realise is that's only at a very specific time of the year that is claimed to happen. And number 3, it's a globe claim based on globe calculations, right? It has nothing to do with reality. And David Weiss actually gave him the correct answer by what when he tried to say declination, but Professor Dave shut it down and attacked him on declinations to make it sound like it's stupid. Now, I would have attacked Professor Dave on his whole, before I ever got to declination, I would have attacked him on his whole lead up to that, because there are other things he said, and the fact that he had his claim completely wrong. He also said that because you can't see the Southern Cross north of the equator, which is total rubbish. You can see it in Texas, Florida, North Africa, Philippines, right? He obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. Even
okay, let's just cover that.
Own claims.
Okay, so the start of that claim by Professor Dave is the same as the claim that came from the Bitcoin claimant that was here last, which is to say that if I assume when travelling south that I will arrive at my destination antipode from where I began, then I will observe the stars as thus. I observe the stars as thus when I am antipode from where I started in the south, therefore I'm antipodal when I'm in the south. It's a begging the question fallacy on steroids, otherwise known as an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. If Earth a sphere, whoa. What do you mean, if Earth's a sphere? Don't start with the premise that you're trying to prove, point at something in the sky, and then say as a result of what I point at in the sky, I am correct in my assumption that I'm antipode from where I started. Now, a lot of people out in the audience have told me, when I disseminate this in the past, or frequently go through this actually, they don't get it. And it takes a few times for them to appreciate what is being laid out when I say it's an assumption that as you walk, let's just take it away from the scale that they use in the globe. Let's just take it to a scale of a mile. Yeah? I'm going to start at point A, 0, and there's going to be point B a mile away in a straight line. And I say, from point A, I look up at the stars and see this star at this time. And then go a mile away to the southern hemisphere, a mile away. And obviously, when I get there, a mile away from my former position, I'm upside down from where I started. Obviously. Why? Well, because I'm telling you that if I'm on a sphere, I will be antipode a mile away. Why? Well, because I've assumed it. It's part of my premise. I know I'm trying to prove that we're on a sphere, but if I just assume it in the first part of my premise, I don't have to prove it, because we're already assuming it, aren't we? If Earth's a sphere is a begging the question fallacy when a statement starts with it. So if we're all under the understanding that we are definitely on a sphere, we can move forward with your proof. So long as we all assume that we're on a sphere in the first instance. No. I will not assume that when I travel to the south, having sat on a plane for a few hours and watched nothing happen that indicates that I'm upside down from where I started when I arrive, why would I have to assume that that is the case? I don't. But it's part of their fallacy, in this case, Professor Dave's fallacy, of antipodal positioning, in and affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. Now, you've got to know what those fallacies are, and how they work, and what the fallacy is in terms of its construction, or its form, to be able to point that out to an audience. Took me about 2.5 minutes to just do that now. Admittedly, I'm trying to educate an audience in so doing. I'm not just trying to address a Professor Dave nonsense assertion with antipodal positioning and a begging the question fallacy on steroids, otherwise known as affirming the consequent fallacy. Now, that I can condense into about 15 seconds, which is enough for Dave to not get a word in, Professor Dave, while I'm pointing it out. And then he just has to deal with it. But that takes a long time to get to that stage.
Well, there's another route you could go to, because the antipodal positioning is built on a celestial sphere flat plane model. So you can't be antipodal on a flat plane.
Perfect timing. Exactly. That's why I said it's the most critical detail in this show at the moment. No, I'm not going to say at the moment. To date, this is the most important and critical detail. If you're going to start with a begging the question fallacy of if the Earth's a sphere, then I will observe stars doing something in the antipodal positioning. I'm now assuming I do observe them doing that thing that I said they'd do, and therefore the antipodal positioning I assumed in the first instance is correct. When they do that, their assumption of antipodal positioning is built off a flat plane. So a violation of the angles that they've taken to measure and infer that they're on a sphere are violated the moment they assume antipodal positioning. So their assumption is defied by the measurements that got them to the assumption, in spite of the fact that the assumption itself is a begging the question fallacy, utilised in affirming the consequent fallacy.
Right, so it could be summed up as antipodal positioning is contradictory to the measurements we take.
The other thing I'll say is notice the level that we're discussing. There's a good chunk of the audience that are going to have lost this thread a long time ago. They won't keep up. No disrespect to you in the audience if you're scratching your head going, what the hell are they talking about? Yeah, that's because we're discussing Dave Weiss, who, no, he's not at the absolute tip of the spear, but he's pretty close. So when we critique him, or as we've put it, constructive criticism is given, we're sharpening an already very sharp tool, and if you're not close to that sharpness, you're not going to keep up. Dave will. He'll listen to this and keep up.
I hope so, because if he combines the celestial sphere flat plane model into his model argument, I think it would be devastating.
Yeah, you're giving them a route to retain their models that they use as tools. This is the Mark Sargents and the Dave Weisses and whoever else is doing a similar thing. And just say, okay, well, when it gets stacked up and I want to retain my tool, I'll turn my tool into your globe model and point out how your globe model was derived from my tool. Excellent. Win-win.
What I noticed is that the main tactics, besides over-talking, having his game turned up, and insults, the main tactics that the professor, not Professor Dave, was using was to attack and belittle Dave Weiss's arguments. So Dave Weiss was attempting to get his arguments in there, and it was being preempted by Professor Dave, because David Weiss is not used to dealing with the type of tactics that Professor Dave has as much as we would have been. So the problem was when David was trying to say what he was trying to say, Professor Dave was preempting him and attacking his argument and making it sound stupid before anyone got to hear it. It's like attacking. It's like even when David Weiss asked him, he says, "Well, what David Weiss was trying to ask him when Professor Dave brought up spectroscopy was trying to ask him as well, what is define the difference between celestial and terrestrial spectroscopy?" But he didn't ask him that in that way. So Professor Dave attacked him on the way he asked him. It wasn't as concise as that. So that's what Professor Dave was up to. It was attacking any argument and preempting any response, from David Weiss. It's clever, but it's not smart. It's not wise, because people in the audience who were flat earthers, a lot of just normal people, going, "What the hell is this? Like, this is not a good representation."
Can I ask a question? Did he hand wave the three body problem? I was just reading in chat. Somebody said that.
He did, I think.
Professor Dave.
Yes. And also, somebody said yesterday that, and I think it was AI. He said something about the reason that they want to ridicule us is nothing more than to distract away from the fact that the globe is actually the mockery, like very easily. But him calling Dave dumb and this, that, and the third is just a distraction from the fact that actually his beliefs are dumb. Because there's no justification for them.
The word you're looking for is projection.
I was just going to say it. Yep. I'm not fast enough.
Yeah, so as I say, if you're not keeping 100% up with what we're talking about, it's because, you know, at the high standard that Dave's already at. And like I say, it's not going to take a very big pummeling stone or whatever you call it to sharpen up Dave's arguments in that respect. And it seems, thanks to John, who's been an absolute credit to this panel in the last few weeks, has got to be said, there's an out that I haven't been able to offer him. I wouldn't have come up with that. You know, all I can do is reluctantly accept, that some of the people on the same side of the argument utilise what I consider to be a reification fallacy in terms of their education tools. Now, as much as I can do is point that out to them and say, I don't think this is a good way of doing it, and then listen and understand and appreciate and not necessarily agree to disagree, but just accept their reasoning behind it. But, as we're discussing now, the reasoning doesn't stack up when you've got Prof. Dave, anti-flat earther, against you. Suddenly they don't work. It just doesn't function in that particular arena anymore. In fact, it works to your detriment. False dichotomy. Sorry, go on, John.
I was going to say that the false dichotomy that they're utilizing to attack the model is also a flat Earth model. So it's a false dichotomy, but they don't have a dog in the race when they bring it up.
Professor Dave actually ruined himself at the very start. But in the same vein, the very start was stacked in David Weiss's disfavour, because the first topic was gravity. So they're supposed to spend 3 or 4 minutes debating about something that has no scientific validation. You know, that's the first topic. You know, it's a bit of a nonsense topic. You know, if you're just going to give that 3 minutes, that's not enough. That needs to be given at least half an hour. You know, and each side needs to be heard, regardless of what you
really
agree with or disagree with.
Hold on a minute. Half an hour for what? Let's just see how long we can drag this out. Well, I don't mind role-playing this with you, Brian, just to make my point.
Yeah.
Any scientific evidence of gravity, Brian?
No, there isn't. But I'm talking about under the circumstances that David Weiss was in. It would have taken half an hour. I'm not talking about here. I'm talking about under those circumstances. It would have needed half an hour before David Weiss to get anything across to the audience that would have mattered. Whereas Professor Dave, he actually killed himself at the very start. Professor Dave killed his own arguments, his own globe arguments, the rest of the arguments he made. He killed them from the very start.
Hold
on, John. How so? You're going to have to give us a bit more detail.
Well, I'm trying not to give detail, but I will. When he was asked by David Weiss, what is gravity, he said, it's just the curvature of space by large bodies or something like that. It was kind of a generalized, it was a generalized kind of a space-time type answer he gave, but wasn't specific to exactly how we would say it as, let's say, quoting Einstein. But from then on, he tried to use a force of gravity.
Right. So he's using an equivocation. So he annihilates himself by detailing it as pseudo-Riemannian force space-time, defined as the uneven distribution of mass causing the bending of space-time by Einstein. That's what it's defined as. But he's then described it as, it's kind of, bodies bending in space-time, and then talked about mass attracting mass.
Yeah, the whole rest of the debate was mass attracting mass.
So why didn't Dave ask him if there's any scientific evidence of gravity? That would have been a great way to do it.
Well, I think it was kind of... Go on, John.
I was just going to say, when it come time to define it, you could have killed it. All you had to say was it's a fallacious description of a phenomenon that no one has ever observed.
Precisely.
Yeah, I mean... Sorry, Nick.
No, I'm just agreeing with John. I mean, you're right, in terms of having to contextualise. The 107-year out-of-date mass-attracting mass falsely ascribed to Newton, actually CV boys, Reverend John Michel and Cavendish, cobbling together some balls in a shed and describing a phenomena that doesn't really exist in the form of mass-attracting mass, later superseded by Einstein, with the uneven distribution of mass causing the bending of space-time, which would be length, breadth, depth and time, a concept that isn't a force. Quote George Musa, gravity is not a force, or Brian Cox, there isn't really a force of gravity at all, end quote. So all of that contextualised fully, although I can do it in 2.5 minutes, would take about half an hour in discussion. You're right. But, like John said last week, why give a slow and painful death to draw it out when there's no phenomena to observe, and you can point that out immediately?
Yeah, but under those circumstances that David Weiss was in, it would have taken longer than 3 minutes for David Weiss to get any coherent argument out there against what was being put up to him. David Weiss, in fairness, he didn't latch on to the fact, maybe he wasn't aware of the little switcheroo that Professor Dave did with the claiming space-time, then going back to mass attracting mass, as that's something we would have held him on straight away. I'm just saying, under those circumstances, that topic would have needed more time. Now, it didn't really matter because Professor Dave's attitude and behaviour went against him in the end, but he destroyed himself from the start, whether he knew it or not. Maybe he did know it, but he knew that David Weiss wouldn't have spotted it, or he took a chance, but he destroyed himself from the start because he started off claiming gravity as an effect, of the curvature of space-time. But then he switched into a massive attraction between, a force of attraction between masses.
Right, which isn't the case.
But the more time you spend arguing against something that you don't see or experience in any way, the more validity you give to it in the eyes of the audience.
Correct.
Exactly.
Well, no. I would just like to say, it's funny, Professor Dave's on screen now. I would just like to say that, I would have been going down the road with that audience of pointing out where Professor Dave was going to have to square him when it came to gravity, that a flat earther understood the claim of gravity better than him. And then I would get to the point of there is no scientific evidence. And if he claimed there was, I would say, well, could you produce blah, 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 and tell me what is a blah, 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 things like that. So I would have walked on the angle of, I'm going to make him squirm now on his claims. I'm going to find out I'm going to show the audience how wrong he is about his own claims.
Yeah, I was going to say rabid dog syndrome. But personally, I agree. But by the same token, I would prefer to just see the death of the argument quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think. Under those circumstances, I reckon if you ask him to any scientific evidence of gravity, he'd do his best to just say yeah and insult you and not allow anything else out. I would rather fluster him and cause him problems, because he was in the driving seat all the way through that. We have to cause him problems internally and make him feel like, oh no, the audience thinks I don't know what I'm talking about, because you're pointing out that he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Gotcha. So hold him to task on his claims that it's mass attracting mass, and then maybe say, well, how does that fit into pseudo-Riemannian force space-time bending? Or something along those lines. In other words, make him appear like he doesn't know what he's actually talking about, because he clearly doesn't. Or he does, and he's intentionally equivocated between the out-of-date mass-attracting mass force that is no longer a force, but you can think of it as a force when you describe the pseudo-Riemannian space-time, a concept, bending. Time, we don't experience time in a physical manner. It's not something you can bend or dilate. And the uneven distribution of mass causing a concept to bend is ludicrous. It certainly isn't a force. It's not even detailed in a claim to be physical manner when it's described in the geometry. Pseudo-Riemannian force space-time bending. What's pseudo mean? Sham space-time? Yeah, absolutely. Let's just summarise that in terms of people who might be listening and want to know, how do you actually defeat a gravity argument? If somebody asserts that mass attracts mass, point out to them that gases don't do that. When they say mass attracts mass, what they actually want to do is assert that there is an always in effect downward vector at 9.8 metres per second. That's gravity in their mind. After they'll detail the current up-to-date nonsense of pseudo-Riemannian force space-time bending. They'll describe it as an emergent force, when it isn't, that causes things to fall to the ground. Things don't fall to the ground. Some things go up. And it's not as a result of the gases around them going down, go boom, boom. Gases don't go down to force other gases up. All gases move in all directions, always, to fill whatever volume they've got to fill. That is gas behaviour. All vectors. So some things go up. Now, this is summarised when someone says, oh, well, we've got a force of gravity. Why aren't we floating away? Oh, well, my helium balloon just did, didn't it? Oh, well, that's because the gases around it are being pulled down. Oh, you think gases are created in the sky and fall like rain when they're in fact created at ground level and expand upwards? Look at that cloud. Was that created in the sky, or did it come from the water cycle and the gas going up? Absolutely annihilating this out of date by 107 years assertion that mass attracts mass. It doesn't. Further to that, your new hotness, that would be pseudo-Ramonian force space-time bending, that's Einsteinian gravity, isn't a force. It's a conceptual medium. So that's how you annihilate gravity.
I was talking to someone the other day about it. Nathan, I was saying about the Earth rotating. It says like the air. You're saying me the whole air that's by the ball is moving as if it's in a contained system where it's not affected by the different volumes of space that the Earth is supposedly traveling through this giant vacuum. So if we're going through different volumes of space and the air around it is traveling as if it's not traveling because we're experiencing no rotation, no movement, no displacement. Yeah, air goes in all directions, but they're trying to say that it's going in all directions, but at the same time uniformly going in one direction. It's just everything about the model is counterproductive, and like you said, gas goes up. You know, so we see all sorts of steam, any sorts of air going in all directions spontaneously. So now they're trying to say that's the reason they're displacing air going upwards. So it's counterproductive what they're saying because it's spontaneously going in all directions. So obviously, it's just not the mass, but the certain amount of material of things. They have a certain place where they stay. Gas molecules are the most independent. They bounce off each other. Like you said, matter doesn't attract mass because when they collide, it creates kinetic energy and they're bouncing in opposite directions. If gas was, if mass attracts mass, they would clump together.
Who's that, Tommy?
Yeah, kudos. Yes, very well summarised. Other than the kinetic energy bit, no, there's elastic collisions. But other than that, absolutely correct.
Okay.
That was almost as slick a lyric spitting as your new video, Henchid boy. That's nicely summarised.
On my music video, on my fighting, which one?
Yeah, the fighting one, the one with all the name dropping in the boxes. Wicked, bro.
The channel's starting to do a bit well now. So I've got up to 1,000 subscribers now, so it's just finally getting a bit going. I'm going to start doing some sort of podcasts and that on it. But yeah, the fighting, I think it's I'm going in all on it. I'm flat smacking all these Glovers. Flat smacking them with the fist. They all don't know. Like I keep saying how good I am at boxing, and they all keep undermining me. You haven't achieved nothing. You've got no credentials. Basically, like what they do, you've got no you ain't qualified. But I'm self-learned. Like you can learn more on the internet. Self-teaching yourself. If you apply yourself, I think like a lot of the flat earthers, for example, they say, "Oh, look, they're jobless and they've got no time." And basically, what it is, what they're saying is, you've got time to process information. They haven't. So when globers, most globers are just people that haven't had time to process the information. You know what I mean? They've just gone through school. They've heard what they've been taught. They've been taught that they don't know everything. They know that they can't rely on their senses, so they rely on the experts. And so it's just. Well, I forgot my kind of point where I was going. So
right, I can shout out a super chat, and you normally will remember. By the time I finish the super chat, you'll hopefully remember. If science doesn't prove things, then how can it be, quote, true whether or not we believe it, end quote, as stated by Neil deGrasse Tyson? I'll cover that briefly. So Neil deGrasse Tyson's utilising the magic trick of science in the heliocentric realm, which is to make up a just so story and imply that it has scientific validity. That's all Neil deGrasse Tyson with his magician waistcoat does. Imply that he's got science when he hasn't. Science, in reality, does prove things. That's why it's used in the magic trick. If you can infer that you have science, then the person you're telling that to will automatically, instinctually believe that it has been empirically validated, because that's what science does. Empirically validate. That's what experimentation does. So, if you don't have any experimentation, and you imply that you have science, and then just as a reminder, science is right whether you like it or not, you'll understand that when he says science, it's right whether you like it or not. In reality, he hasn't got any science, that's Neil deGrasse Tyson, but when he uses that magic word, you'll believe he does. He's actually peddling pseudoscience. That's why we have been saying for quite a significant period of time that we shouldn't fall victim to the same mistake and utilise pseudoscience to make our claims. it leaves us vulnerable to them just using and peddling the same exact trick and saying, well, this is the right science. That's the right science. Well, my flat earth science is the right science. No, your science isn't real science. My globe earth science is the real science. All right, is there any science in any of this? Let's have a little look. Step 1, observe natural phenomena. Anybody got any of that? Oh, look, check it out. Nobody's got a phenomena being observed. We've got a few little tests that are claimed to be done. Well, that would be scientifically experimentation. But tests on stuff that man have made, that's definitely not a natural phenomena. But we've got flat earthers and we've got globe earthers both peddling pseudoscience because they don't really know what science is. And they've got their own claims on the flat earth side that need this magic trick of science where it isn't really applicable. So, we're all vulnerable. We're all using the same magic trick and bullshit to claim that we've got something we haven't, which is empiricism, which is only offered, whether you like it or not, by science if you actually perform the method. Step 1, observe a phenomena. Something happening in nature. Not caused or made by man, that would be synthetic. Something in nature that occurs naturally that you want to know the cause of. You look at it, see it occur, and go, I wonder what caused it. Then you formulate a hypothesis. That would be your effect that you observed in nature as your dependent variable, and what you believe will cause it, your independent variable, presumed cause of the effect. Now, that presumed cause of the effect will be validated by you varying it and seeing if it causes the effect you observed. If it does, you have validated your presumed cause in an experiment. If it doesn't, you have validated your null in an experiment. That would be, if I vary what I assume causes this effect I observed, it doesn't cause the effect. You vary it, it doesn't cause it, you validated that it wasn't the cause of the effect. Validation, empiricism, that's what science offers if the method's done. Tyson has none, but he'll infer it and use the power that it infers when he peddles stories about lights in the sky. Hope that answers your question, Retro Bill. Excellent super chat, thank you so much.
I love when you do that, by the way, Nathan. I love it.
Finish my point I was making earlier?
Yes, go ahead, and then Neil after. Go ahead.
I remember saying it was something to do with people that basically do have time to process information and have time to think about it tend to understand it better. And yet, most of the time, people that have more time to think about these things and study them on the internet are people that don't have full-time jobs or probably not as successful in or busy, maybe mothers that are at home. It's people that get a lot of time to get access to more information than that you've had since you've left school. And I think that's the another big problem for Flat Earth, because there's a lot of Flat Earthers that don't have a lot of credentials and they're not taken seriously because how would they ever know? But they're the perfect people to know because they're going to have the time to look at it. They're not the only ones going to be distracted with their day-to-day lives and not have enough time to look into these things and look at it seriously from an open mind. Most people are all, they can't have their own opinion because it will jeopardize their job and their profession that they've studied, such as, cats, conspiracy cats. I mean, even if he agrees with us, he couldn't ever publicly agree with us.
Indeed.
Okay, I'm confused.
Go ahead, Neil, then I've got a shout out a super chat.
I just want to say, I love when you go into that teaching mode of science. Outstanding. And are you saying credentials, Tommy?
Yeah. So some credentials because there's no proper doctors and professors that back because when you talk about Flat Earth, it also gets tied to every other conspiracy also. So it's unfortunate sometimes. You guys are very purist about this particular point, like sextants and angles and numbers, where most people are about conspiracy. So it kind of falls under that umbrella, and then therefore. People then try to go, well, what credential people are actually saying the Earth's flat, etc., and what evidence have they got, so to speak? But you'd have to deep into the internet, such as here, or Discord, and stumble across this sort of people. But people locally around me knowing about quantum arrays have been approached by people saying they know Nathan as well around by my area too. So whatever you're doing, it's finally getting out there, but it's just very slow. And as you said, it's all prohibited because it's. Flat Earth, isn't it? Again, it's conspiracy, and it doesn't go well on the internet, does it?
It's one of the fallacies that we use, Tommy, is to, are you a scientist? I could say I am, but it's kind of irrelevant what I do in my day job. Yeah, there's a claim on the table; it's being dealt with. You can use science, or you can cite stuff, but to link whether I'm a plumber, a builder, a chemist, or whatever. It's kind of irrelevant. And I think you made a good point. It's not about your day job. It's whether or not you've bothered to put the hours in to look into it. Yeah.
Look, I know that. Of course, I know that. And look, myself, I don't underestimate anybody. And even, for example, with Nathan, he was extremely aggressive with me when I first came on the scene. And rightly so. I was completely deluded, retarded, fucking...
Right. Okay, hold on.
Spill fucking milk.
No worries.
So,
I just don't want to get into a summary of your history through Flat Earth. Sorry, Tommy, because we're nearly at the end of this live show. I just want to do a few shout-outs to Super Chatters. So, shout-out to JK, who says, I know it's not your prerogative to debate elsewhere, but could you please go out and crush this clown? I assume you're talking about Professor Dave. For all of us, we need proper representation. Okay, well, this is a slightly disappointing Super Chat to have to answer. Firstly, thank you very much for the Super Chat, JK. This channel is set up to make a living for me, and that is predominantly all I want to do. I want to be a successful YouTuber, first and foremost. That doesn't mean to say that I don't love the subject. Further to that, I have set up what I consider to be a hub of education. This show, if you scroll down into the comments and look at what I have listed this show as, it's education. What I really want is Dave Weiss. That person. I know he's being used in a specific example and been discussed all show, but I'm going to focus on him as an individual to say he's the guy I want. What do I mean by that? I mean, he comes and listens to the discussions, the debating points, and sharpens up his own argument, so he goes out into the wild, wild west and disseminates that information in the best possible fashion. I'm but one man. Now, what I can do from here is disseminate the information in what I perceive to be the best possible way. Obviously, I've got control of the show when there are fundies here, so it means I can control how the information's disseminated. Now, I know my opponents hate that. Yeah? They bleat all day about the mute button. I don't care. Doesn't faze me one bit, because all I'm trying to do is disseminate the information in the best possible way. Sometimes I'll lose my temper, sometimes I won't perform as well as I would hope in terms of that consistency. Doesn't matter. It is being offered and the channel's growing. From that perspective, praise Dearth for doing it also. And hopefully, maybe he's got his best arguments from here or from wherever. It's not relevant. Wherever he's got them from, he's acquired them, refined them, and may refine them further, and then gone out and disseminated them. I could do that, and I could one at a time it with other shows. But I'd rather utilise what we've got, and I hope that's the reason my panel hang around, despite me telling them off. Well, yeah, my wife was telling me off yesterday, by the way, guys. She had a right go at me for what I said to you. Anyway, that aside, I want that to branch out, and I hope everyone on the panel wants that too. They want the information to be formatted consistently so that it's understood by an audience so they can disseminate it elsewhere. That's the best I feel I've got to offer. Now, could I go out and debate Professor Dave? Yeah, but as a YouTuber, first and foremost, I just want to be paid. That's the bottom line, and I'm sure Brian will back me up in that. You know, I want to make a living here. Now, that living will benefit the Flat Earth community if they choose to take in the information that is useful for them in debate. Or not. That's up to them, but I'm not going to twist anyone's arm. And as for me wanting to proactively go out to Dave, Professor Dave, I don't want to. That's the bottom line. I don't want that. That's why I'd want to be paid, and for all the reasons that Brian originally raised. Why would I want to sit through Professor Dave telling me that I'm an idiot for 2 hours? Unless I'm getting paid, no thanks. Here, if they start doing that, I will shut them down, point out how their argument's flawed, and call them an idiot based on the fact that their argument was flawed, not an ad hominem attack. That's what I can and do here to make the information more prevalent, to disseminate it to as many people as I possibly can. And I don't necessarily know that I would do even as good a job as Dave did with Professor Dave. Who is to say that I would do better? You don't know that. You hope I would. While I'm producing my own show and I've got the control of everything at my fingertips, doesn't necessarily mean that I would. You'd hope so. I would hope so. But I don't think that's where my place is. Go on, whoever that was. I've got a few more super chats to read out.
I just wanted to say that that the idea of going out and debating on other people's platforms, I have put out a challenge to Ken Hovind. He said that a model had to be, you had to choose a model to debate with him against. I've done that. I met his stipulations. Now I'm just waiting on his response.
Cool. So it's out there if anyone wants to chase up Kent, who insists on having a reification fallacy to debate within. I'm just going to do a couple more shout-outs. Shout-out to Retro Bill, who says, thanks for the comprehensive answer, Nathan. Definitely worth another $5. Oh, wow. Thank you very much. Retro Bill, really appreciate the support. Also, shout-out to Sleeping Warrior. It's addressed to somebody else. I'll do my best to paraphrase it. Sleeping Warrior says, Prof. Phil Bell, calculations that a 10-kilogram pumice stone dropped directly above the Mariana Trench will get to the floor in about 40 minutes. Pumice floats on water. Yeah. Well done, Phil. Very good. Any more rounding out comments in regards to DITRH versus Professor Dave before I ask everyone to stay tuned if they're watching on an after show?
I have one closing comment that might have.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's that there's no need for you or anyone else to go after this Professor Dave. He's done his own disservice to himself, because anyone normal listening to that was disappointed with him. You know, they expected more from a professor than that attitude. So there's no need for anyone. Like, he's not important enough for that. You know, there's a reason why he doesn't hang around debating flat earthers in Discord or coming onto this show or whatever over the years. There's a reason why he didn't have all those debates. It's because he has one angle and he's working off of that. He's debating people that he knows he might have a little bit more knowledge than or have better tactics than. But all it takes is for him to be caught one time. And after that, his whole professor status looks terrible. But which would happen to him if he started debating people more often. But he doesn't. He picks the debates with people that suits him to debate, that he thinks he can use the tactics against, blah, blah, blah. You know, so, you know, that's the thing about Professor Dave. He was fine about debating David Weiss because he knew basically that David Weiss wouldn't spot the tactics he's using as fast as someone else who's used to debating on Discord or something would. You know, so that's why he did it. So there's no need to go after Professor Dave. He basically ruined himself because he made David Weiss look like a good guy.
Anybody else got any comments?
Like to add, yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
You raised the point, and I'll defend you. You know, why would you want to go and suffer what Dave had to put up with? And they have no respect. This forum's here for them, and they might criticise the way you talk them, but I'll remind them that you are the moderator here, and they still attack you like that. You know, so their behaviour, and like I said, I think if that was seen by the majority of the audience, flat or ball last night, that to me is a great win, irrespective of how the arguments went, because nobody proved the ball. But if people are realising that fundamentally a baller's argument against us is to call us retards, then that's a big win for me. Well done, Dave.
Cool. Yeah, I'm going to give him big props at the end when I round out. But anybody else?
Yeah. I was just going to say to you, well, to everyone actually, just like you super chat the people that whose content that you support. When professors or people go to have conversations with other people on their podcast, there's a good portion of them that are paid. People that go on Joe Rogan's, they're not going on there for free. Like, they're paid for their time, effort, and influence. You know, and so, like, it'd be very fair to say, well, why would I do that if I'm not getting paid? Well, what you can do, if you really saw the value in it, is if you had a way to get Nathan onto some other debating platform, offer him something for his time.
Yeah, money.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know. You don't know what. You don't know if he'd do it or not.
A slight tangent, Eli. But anybody else in specific reference to the debate?
Because I want to make it straight. It seems like you're not. We know you don't want to chase Professor Dave, but he can come into this arena if he feels froggy.
Absolutely. Yes. Would I take great delight in taking Professor Dave to pieces? Yeah. And if he wants to show how wrong I am in my arrogant assertion that I would absolutely annihilate him, then he's got every opportunity with an open door policy daily to come in and say, you think you'd take me to pieces? Well, let me tell you about the globe, my friend. He's entitled to come and do that. And like I say, if you go back to show 100 and previous, you'll see me getting annihilated quite frequently. And if you enjoy that sort of thing, go and check out some of the old shows. It's taken a long time to reach the point that I can be so arrogant as to say I would absolutely annihilate Professor Dave within a heartbeat of him using a fallacy, which he uses a lot. But is there any other comments in terms of DITRH and Professor Dave? Maybe from Discord?
If you're putting that challenge out, Nathan, I'd happily moderate that debate. Would look forward to listening to it.
Indeed, but specifically with reference to Dearth and Dave.
Yes, David Wise needs to now also start charging a fee for going onto anti-flat earther platforms. Right?
Doing it for free. We should be thanking him. No, he doesn't need to be. Well, I'm not going to tell him what he does and doesn't need to do as you've just done. But by the same token, he's out there on larger platforms putting out the information and disseminating it to an audience. That is commendation worthy. That's worth commending him for.
I get that, but if you're going directly on anti-flat earther platforms, it's a different matter. You shouldn't, not without a fee.
Why are you telling me what he should or shouldn't do?
I think it doesn't matter because, you know, wherever you go, you're still spreading the truth. You're planting that seed anywhere and everywhere. So to even be charging a fee to give information like that, I think is not worthy. But to go out there and do it for free and go onto somebody else's platform and spread the truth for free, I think, like Nathan said, that's common. That's worthy of just the information itself.
Indeed. And with that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Programming streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. First and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Professor Dave and DITRH for making the discussion today possible. Of course, a massive thank you to today's Discord and G+ panels for making the discussion possible in the first instance. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in the live audience for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, checking out my second channel, Nathan Oakley, if you want to hear the pre-show or after show. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Any chance seen?
They're silly little channels, is he? He went to an independent channel.
I don't care. I'd go on any channel, but if I recognize an anti-flat earther there, obviously to get under my skin and try to make me look stupid, I'm going to say, okay, I didn't know this person was going to be there. I'm not getting paid, so I'm out of here. Bye.
Yeah, but you're just looking for monetary value. Then you're not looking to spread the truth. You just want money to do it.
No, I don't want to deal with these freaks. That's why. They're a waste of everybody's time. The only thing they ever do is try to make you look bad. As soon as you get out of there, they're going to talk shit about you anyway, because that's what they do. That's what they
and that's very noble.
Who cares what they say about you? As long as you say the truth, there's nothing that they can say bad about you. All you're doing is spreading the truth. Who cares?
And I agree with Arwen's sentiment, and that is very noble. But I also do want to be paid.
Okay, yeah, but I don't blame you. I don't blame you, though.
Can I just make a point on this? We've discussed this, haven't we, about what with Mitchell and all those things, and that is in relation to them getting us on their scabby little channels that are more promoted by YouTube and they get revenue from. We said no to that unless yeah, they want to pay, yeah, in which case, fine, you're going to actually pay some cash. But if you're going out of our little world on YouTube, then actually you are doing a public service to the community, okay? So that's your reward there. The reason we're asking for money is to tell them to shove it. If they're getting plenty of cash, and if they want to come and over-talk us and call us retards, we deserve remuneration for that. But this is something more productive in the bigger community, the YouTube community, that isn't in our little corner.
Precisely. So when it came to Vice, I was contacted, not anymore, for some reason they've all dried up, but back in the day when we weren't censored or fringe content on YouTube, obviously we were reaching the mainstream media and they were intrigued. And plenty of them got in touch and asked me to do interviews, and I turned them all down with one exception, that was Vice. Because I viewed it in the exact same way that Adam has just detailed it, weighing up the pros and cons of how likely are to screw me over and paint me in the bad light or edit me badly, versus the overall benefit to what I perceive as, number one, I'm not going to lie, my prevalence in the community and the information prevalence in the community. And I thought that was worthwhile on balance. Therefore, I did it. Now, I still asked for my expenses. I was like, yeah, you're going to pay for me to get there. I'm not going to travel down to London on my own coin. If you want to interview me, you can pay for all that. But they didn't pay me a dime for actually doing the interview. I didn't make any money out of it. I just didn't lose any by the travel. And that, to me, was perfectly acceptable because of the actual clout that Vice had to offer. So when someone says, well, I've got a bigger channel than you, you're like, are you seriously offering me the opportunity to be berated at your behest for 2 straight hours on the basis that you've got 100,000 subscribers? You've got to be joking. You know, to offer that as an incentive, you've got to be someone like Vice or ITV or BBC or someone that you go, yeah, that is a worthwhile amount of clout to be throwing around as a justification to come on their particular show. And there even reaches a point for some people, Jordan Peterson or someone like that, where they're still going to want money to go on the BBC.
Was this platform where Dave Weiss went against David, was that a super big platform that is typically unbiased?
Yeah, just an average YouTuber. Sean Atwood's not exactly Mr. Everybody knows him.
And does he talk about Flat Earth ever?
He
or
recently
was this
has.
The first time or
he showed a mild interest. Most of his focus is on his time in jail in the States as an Englishman, which is an interesting aspect to look at, that particular, I don't know, corner of society, whatever you want to call that. Very, very different. But he's found an interest in the subject, and great, good for him. Shows that it's disseminating its way into people who don't cover this subject, which is great.
So it's an actual neutral platform.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, then I take it back. I thought it was kind of an anti-flat earther guy, but I might have jumped the gun there. I didn't look farther than 5 seconds anyway. So
No, I don't classify him as an anti-flat earther.
I told you that when you first started talking.
Well, what I'd like to say about it is that I charge for debates against our opponents, not because I think I'm some special fella, not because I can't handle their arguments, not because I have special arguments, not because I'm selling the truth. It's because I don't want my time wasted anymore, because that's all that's going to happen. You're going to have a situation where I'm debating some anti-flat earther, regardless of what I say, whether it gets through to the audience or not, regardless of what I say, even if I debunk some of their claims or all of their claims, that same person, 2 hours later or the next day or whatever, is likely to be on some other channel or in some other platform using the same exact things, same exact arguments that I debunked, right? That he or she couldn't prove against me. So why should I, right, go onto a platform and debate for free and just basically have 2 hours of my life wasted? Why should I do that anymore?
Are you getting paid right now?
No, but this is different. This is not like going on to a neutral YouTube or platform of some kind or some media, as Nathan was saying. This is different. I'm not wasting my time here. You know, but I am wasting my time trying to debate people, and most of the time the debates are happening on Discord where no one even hears them. You can have the best debate in the world, and 30 people hear it, and 25 of them could be ballers, and nobody cares. Who cares? I mean, it's not productive. It's not moving anything forward. You know, the longer we stay arguing with our opposition in Discord, the longer this is going to go on and go nowhere. That's my take on it.
Well, I think the longer that you sit and wait and you don't get out there and cut these dudes' heads off, that they're just going to keep spawning.
Well, I'm around since 2015. I don't know when you came into it, but I'm around since 2015. And so I have experience maybe in it. If you're not around that long, then I have experience in it that maybe you don't have. Because I've seen people that I've debated, and I've taken their claims apart. They weren't able to prove their claims, yet they're come back with the exact same claims the next day against someone else. Pointless.
Well, I think everybody just needs to take a deep breath. The debate is really over. I mean, at this point, it's just realizing that you've won.
Well, that's kind of what I mean when I say these things. Why do you? I understand if you're going on to somebody else's platform, they have 100,000 subscribers and they're getting paid for it. Yeah, why can't? If they're looking for the content, sure. Why can't you get paid for it? I understand that 100%. I agree. But for some of these dudes, you know, kind of like Bob, who only have maybe 2,000-3,000 subscribers, and what he's really looking for is just content to get more subscribers. Why don't you just go onto his show, hit him with the truth, hit him with the facts, shut him down, and when he tries to come on Discord or pop in the live show, cut him down again, make him look like a fool, and then his database, his viewership, or whatever it's called, it'll just start dwindling because more people will realize the truth.
No, that won't happen. What matter how good a debate I'd have against Bob, Bob is not going to agree that I've debunked these claims. His followers or subscribers are not going to side with me. It's going to be a complete waste of time. What's in it for me? That's
the question.
No good to me.
That's
I've
the
already
question.
been there.
Sorry, Brian, to interrupt you. What's in it for me? That's the question you ask yourself. And it's the question you should be asking if you're pitching to someone else. What's in it for them? What will make them want to do this? What incentivizes this for them? Well, our opponents are like kids that don't know how to get a girlfriend when it comes to this. They come along and offer things that nobody's interested in. And you're like, do you not know how to do this? Clearly not. I mean, it turns into sales or getting laid a lot. But either way, it's a skill that a lot of people just don't have. They don't seem to understand how to incentivize others into doing what they want. Now, me, I can do that. I was a salesman.
That was the point I was alluding at. There is cash if you're going to deal with these guys. That's the only thing they can offer us. Because, like I said, and that's why I validated going to platforms outside of our little community. Well, what I'm getting out of that is I'm spreading the message properly, productively. But if I go on one of their silly little channels, what am I getting? Nothing. As Brian says, it's not going to change his mind. It's not going to change his listeners. They're just going to shout over you. Yeah. Well, if that's going to be the experience, then I know the message ain't getting out. So that ain't my remuneration. The only thing I can think that they could possibly offer, and we've pointed this out, is just cash.
So there you go there then.
There'd have to be a lot of cash as well, really, wouldn't it? I think Brian's at $5,000, aren't you, Brian?
Yeah, $5,000 for two. Sorry, yeah.
No, I don't know if an arbitrary amount like $5,000 is what I would accept. I would negotiate with whatever the person was based on what they had to offer. Like I say, it's always down to what's in it for me. And it's a sliding scale. You know, it doesn't necessarily follow that I wouldn't accept a $5 to go on someone's show. If I thought that was worthy of going on their show, I probably would. I'm not saying I'll accept a $5. I'm just giving it as an example. The amount is irrelevant. It's so you want to pay me for my time. Therefore, my time, in the most literal way, becomes valuable. Now, If I'm not, what's it worth to you? Oh, only the money you will get as a result of me being there. So it's a value to you. So when you're asking the what's in it for me question, you're asking quite literally what's in it for me, as opposed to the person you're trying to incentivize. They just don't get that thick. Stupid.
Right. First, they tried to gaslight us that flat Earth is dying. Then they imagine how we are desperate, and then they imagine how gracious they are letting us on their platform so we get a wider reach. And that's really what they're thinking, right?
Yeah, delusional. Like going up to the girl in high school and telling her how wonderful you are and how much better she'll be off by being with you. That sort of shite. Yeah, that really works.
Exactly.
But this is the delusionalness. What they're alluding to is I'll say again, they need us, right? We don't need them. And they're going, oh, yeah, flat Earth's dying. But the show that Dave was on last night was outside of this sphere. It isn't dying, it's growing to the point that other niche communities are also asking the question. And there's not much out there. So a good host has gone and got two of the top people from both sides and put them together for a completely separate audience. It's not dying, boys. It's growing. Yeah? You're the thing that's dying. Anti-flat earthers.
And it needs propping up. Anti-flat earth / globe needs assistance. Further to that, the competition needs suppression. We are categorised as fringe. YouTube make no bones about what we are here on the pro-flat earth side. Now, will it matter that our tags and titles are identical to our opponents? Oh, no. Will it matter that they're playing vast chunks of our material for their monetised audience that they do get promotion for? Oh, no, that doesn't matter either. But if it's us doing it, pro-flat earth, then no, you're not going to get promoted to anybody. It's only promotion worthy if it's trimmed out and stuck in an anti-flat earthers video. So they get all the promotion they could ever want. And then they come along and say, you're dying in this community. No, as Adam's just pointed out, I see growth, and I see examples of growth on Sean Atwood's. I don't want to reiterate what Adam's just said, but in that example, that's genuine growth. In the face of oppression. Yeah, that's some feat, right? Now, you want to claim that it's somehow wonderful that when you oppress somebody and censor them, that somehow that's, well, look, you're not doing very well. Yeah, that's because you put the kibosh on it. What did you expect? But in reality, in spite of the kibosh, there is still growth. I still am growing. I'm going to hit 23,000 subscribers shortly. My stats are going up. I react to them if they do go down to make sure they go up. But you want to claim it's dying community? Fine. No, the people around us who own the platform have done everything possible to make pro-flat earth not found. That's the facts. They sat in front of Congress and told them they'd do it.
Well, you know,
not only that, I've been pointing out for a long time that any YouTube channel or some other media platform where people can leave their comments, I've noticed that the ones that don't focus on flat earth but mention flat earth, they also acknowledge that those segments that they do on flat earth are the ones that get the most views. Second of all, when you look into the comment section, it's surprisingly open-minded to what the flat earth position is. More and more. I mean, you can look at the comment section from the debate with Dave Weiss and Professor Dave. A lot of people are just like, there's no need for that, man. I just want to see what Dave's got to say. What's up? What's the issue? You know?
Yeah, that's exactly that's the sentiment I saw in the comments. Exactly, Eli. Because it's a different audience. They haven't got the backing of anti-flat earthers. They're not anti-flat earthers. They might be globers, but they're a very different breed.
I just want to say before John goes, because I'm about to drive here, and John, I'll get out of your way then. That leads on to exactly what I was going to say just before Eli said that, was that this conversation is taking place around kitchen tables between brothers and sisters, between friends, between work colleagues. is taking place there, and that's where the change is happening. So it doesn't matter how much we're suppressed by YouTube or anything else, or Google. The point is that it's taking place in people's homes and in people's workplaces and leisure within the areas of leisure pursuit, whatever. So social stuff. That's where it's taking place more and more and more and more. And that's why any channel that talks about flat Earth or shows anything about flat Earth, whether they be a radio channel or anything, they get a huge amount of positive response. So it's much bigger than they realize.
Well, right, man. Even though if like with Toon thinking that he's berating the show, Globers, little do they know that they keep flat Earth, the idea itself, afloat. Like Toon coming in here, playing sound bites, doing other things. Long as they're talking about it, they're keeping it up and going too as well.
Yep, that's what I was getting ready to get to, is instead of looking at them as a hindrance to be overcome, we could utilize them because they are dependent upon us. We just have to get the other flat earthers to realize what they're doing.
No, totally no. They are of no use to us. Absolutely none. Even they're not shadow banned like us. They don't have any real audiences. Yeah, they've got no interest. The places to reach out and bother with your time are the places like where Dave went, completely independent, where the real conversation, real people are genuinely interested. Yeah, not these guys which just want to fallacy their way through to produce a little video where they might get you to trip up on something. They're not worthy of your time.
Right, they just want to scatter.
I have to object to that. Let me object to that real quick. I have done a live stream with Toon before and have people join servers and interested in flat Earth just based off Toon's live stream.
The ones getting the publicity.
Yeah, it does work.
So they're the ones getting the publicity. We could use it.
100%. It worked. I got a few people joining. Just like, okay, I'm curious to hear I want to hear you guys out, and they joined based off his live stream, just watching it alone.
Yeah, that's why I thank them for the advert. When they make a hater video about me, when I used to go to their videos, which I don't anymore, my comment would always be the same. Thanks for the advert.
My retort to that is it's trickly little growth, and it's not reaching a new audience. But to do what Dave did last night, to go out there and debate somebody we wouldn't debate in their arena, yeah, that has a much bigger impact, and that's got a value to it. But one or two guys, well, there's one or two guys would have come across this anyway. They're in that realm. So to me, if you're going to, it comes back to what's in it for me, and on their channels, there's nothing in it for me. There's nothing worthy of spending time. Yeah,
that's what I get quite often from flat earthers is like, why are you working with Toon? Why are you trying to set things up with Toon? Well, I like to pick the people, his viewers from his stream and bring them to the idea of flat earth. There could be new people that just suddenly came across his stream, just, going through their news feed, and there it is. There's a suggested video and they hear about flat earth. I never really looked into this. Now I'm curious. I want to hear the other side. I want to hear both sides. It will bring people more to the idea. Flat earth has the potential to spread out like nationwide, all over, more and more and more and more.
Well, I don't know about that, but in address that.
Just one thing, it is, and this is the point we're making. I was saying this with John and Eli the other day about where we are. I listen to loads of scriptural scholarly stuff, so yeah, with really good high-end stuff, and it's coming up there, yeah, and people are also mentioning it in the chat, defending it, attacking it. Yeah, Professor Dave was on one of these channels, absolutely, and he got a bit of a toasty there. Yeah, fake professor, etc. But it's coming up in the other places, and what I'm saying is, if you're going to invest your time going out into different places, and we're looking at, they're the places to go, not into their snotty little world. Yeah, let it be, because they only exist for us. That's why they're so desperate to have us on. They need to go over there.
Exactly.
Well, if they're desperate, they need to pay. They need to pay then.
Yep. They won't come here. But that's okay.
And that was the premise, wasn't it? the only other reason you would go there is if they were remunerated in a proper way that was worthy of us going over there and being insulted for an hour or two.
Well, what I was saying, though, is that there's a point now that both sides concede that is factually accurate, that the Earth is flat. Why focus on the things we disagree about? The one thing we can agree about is what we should stick to, because that's where we win.
Yes, I agree with that.
Totally agree, Neil. Well said.
The hard part is penetrating their beliefs, their religious beliefs, getting past that. There's only certain individuals that are agreeable that, you can have a discussion with and open ideas and, test and, going down that avenue, right? But there's ones that are just a complete waste of time and make everything just look bad and, there's no point.
Well, it's hard for them because when you need the Earth to be flat for everything, I wouldn't want to come in here either.
Well, see, that's the thing, though. Like, they do need it to be flat for everything that they assert. I don't see the problem in going there and agreeing with them. I don't anymore. What are we afraid of?
Well, they need the Earth to be flat. They just don't want to admit it. They know it's flat.
Neil.
It's
Excellent
right
point.
there.
As I said before, and I will say it again, flat Earth is going nowhere. It's not going nowhere.
No, we can't hear you, Neil. You're constantly roboting. So just stop trying.
Can you hear me now?
Can we hear the guy telling us that flat Earth's going nowhere? Go ahead, whoever that was.
Yeah, it's going nowhere. No matter, how much you can hope it goes somewhere or try or whatever, flat Earth is here to stay, and it's going to progress.
Oh, going nowhere as in it's not going anywhere. It's not going away.
Nathan and I both took that the same way, and when you take something from the non-inertial frame of reference like we did, it interprets totally different.
It is technically correct. We are stationary,
Play on words.
Not going anywhere. Boom, boom, Arwen.
Uh-huh.
Nathan, you kind of mashed up my super chat a little bit, but just prior to that super chat, Professor Phil Bell was saying that he teaches engineering students a load of maths, and I was like, great. Can you tell me how long it'd take for a 10-kilogram pumice stone to drop to the bottom of the ocean at the Mariana Trench? It's about, 36,000 feet. And he's like, yeah, sure, I can tell you that. How heavy is your stone? I said 10 kilograms. He said, how heavy is your mass? I said 10 kilograms of pumice stone. He did his maths. He doesn't realize that pumice floats on water.
Yeah, that's not a shock. He doesn't know what gas is either, does he?
Just demonstrates that maths doesn't mean it's reality, even if your sum is correct.
Well, it's just a descriptive language, isn't it? That's all math is.
No. To them, it's their Bible is. 10 Commandments, right? One of them's got to be maths in there somewhere for them.
Somebody tells you flat Earth is.
Scientists
If
today are
somebody
nothing more
tells
than
you,
mathematicians.
One of you go.
Go ahead, Arwen.
Thank you. If somebody tells you flat Earth is going nowhere, you should just say, correct, we're here to stay, and we're stationary.
Very good, Arwen.
Reference.
The stupidity
Well, that was a nice play on words.
Tony. Nice. It'll be there.
Well, no, I wouldn't say it's a play on words. I would say it's identifying and applying the equivalence principle in it, because you can say from one frame of reference, the flat Earth's going nowhere because it's stationary and immovable. But if you change your frame of reference, you can say that it's going nowhere, meaning it's here to stay. Just depends on what frame of reference you're in, Adam.
Yep. So it's a triple meaning like that.
Ask a quick question.
Yeah, hold on a second. So, hold on 1 second. So, what are the last comment before Arwen? Scientists or what?
Uh-oh.
Somebody said
scientists today are nothing more than mathematicians just seeking to quantize everything into discrete particle interactions.
Oh, Jesus. Here we go. Really? Who's that?
Any and every branch of science.
Every branch of science does that. Really? So put up an astronomer here that's doing what you're saying they're doing.
Astronomy is not science.
Thank you. Astrophysicist.
That's theoretics.
No, not astrophysics.
Oh, really? So you're saying that things are taking place up in
No,
outer
I'm not
space?
saying that. No.
So then it's theory.
You don't understand theoretical physics versus astrophysics.
It's all theoretical, man.
Theoretical. Define theoretical.
Let's see. Fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's phantasms, dude. They're doing physics on fantasy.
They're not doing any physics. That's the point.
Fantasy physics.
Fantasy physics. Well, that was deep. Tony, that was a good one from the non-inertial reference frame. That was really abstract. That caught me off guard. I was impressed.
Yeah, it's nice. I liked it too.
I didn't like it that much.
Oh, wow. Shots fired.
Can I ask my quick question?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Hey, Nathan, I was listening to replay the other day, and you keep saying, and I asked this on the comment, but I don't know if you saw it, but when you say proof, afterwards you say proof C. I don't know, like, why do you say proof C? Is that a term?
What you're asking? What a proof C is?
It's internal
Yeah, you say
lingo.
instead of saying proof, you say proof C. Like, what does that mean?
Okay, to distinguish between something that actually proves something and something that the person presenting thinks proves something. So a proof C would be, well, obviously those pink fluffy clouds are proof that those are unicorn farts. That would be a proof C of unicorn farts. You follow?
So did you make this up, or is that like an actual term?
I'll just look it up. No, it's definitely a real word.
What?
Really?
I googled proof C, and like I don't know how to even spell it.
No,
So I don't know.
Not at all. I just made it up. I
S-I-N.
actually stole it.
S-Y.
I actually stole it from Tim Osman.
Oh, that's very cutesy then.
Yeah,
that's
so
right.
Let's see your little proof C then.
Well, just to get back onto what we were talking about, as far as a point of contention for a debate to exist, what is the point of contention now?
There isn't one. They use a flat plane in the first instance to measure elevation angles, so do we. There isn't a point of contention. They require a flat plane to assert that they're on a sphere. They'll start measuring it and then turn it into a sphere, destroying the angles they measured in the first place. So there is no point of contention. Earth's flat. You can think of it as a sphere, but it'll violate the angles you used to measure in the first place. So there isn't one.
Right. There's just struggles of will now. That's what we're doing.
The depth of retardation.
Right, yeah, just illogical stupidity is what we're dealing with.
And their mindless wiki parroting acumen. That's the contention. How deep does it really go? We'll flesh it out.
But they even get that wrong at times, though. Right? Yeah. The anti-flat earthers are even their backdrop, what they trusted on everything, even that is now starting to work against us. Or against them, because we are even figuring out where they got their ideas from, how they come up with it, and then they really can't use it anymore, but they still have the habit of relying on all that stuff out there, including Wiki. So they might sometimes parrot Wiki, but it's not a bad idea to double check if they're actually right, because they just get things wrong now. Just wrong.
I like how Arwin boils down basic research. It's not a bad idea to have a little check to see if what you're reading's actually correct, Because you know what? Sometimes it isn't. Shocking. Right, Owen, that's basic research in a nutshell.
Yeah, well, you got to start somewhere.
I like the hordes of the mindless parroters of the wiki parroters. That's who I like. That's my favorite one.
Just need to hold them down on what
Well, it is the wiki is the main source of the Coriolis confusion, of course, with their special terrestrial Coriolis, right? The ballers anti-flat Earth has always got that. It hasn't changed much.
Hey, Coffee, hold on a second, Arwen. Coffee Hose, you're in here. You says in chat skanking, any news on why the dip angle correction is a negative number? Can you please provide citation dip angle correction, please? Or come off moot. Dip angle correction, that whole phrase. I want to see that in citation, please.
Well, that would be weird.
Coffee Hose, come off moot. Dip angle correction. I want to see that. Speak.
Horizon's never above your eye level, right?
Yeah. Now, let's stick with the topic. Dip angle correction. That whole phrase. Dip angle correction. I need to see that in live stream. Or come off moot and explain it to us.
Can I see a dip angle? What's the dip angle?
Is the question, why is it always negative?
No, I want, well, that's the question. I want to see dip angle correction.
Even with a dingleberry, but fundamentally on a flat plane, when you've got an obtuse angle caused by you being raised above the height of the deck, you've got to, and you want it to be 90. So
no, you're getting off. I want dip angle correction. I want to see that.
We're all whistling past the graveyard here.
Don't post a reference. Like, this is elephant hurling. It's a fallacy. You're a numpty dipshit. Come off moot.
Now!
I want to see dip angle correction. That's what I want to see. Oh, he says not. Yeah, so you're out of here.
Okay, so Adam said that you've got a more obtuse angle. Is that what you said, Adam?
Yeah.
So
because
angle.
Basically, the question to me was
the bit that confused me was the angle bit. Angle? They have one of those, do they?
Well, the point you're trying to get is something defined from the 90. So the point is, because you're above the deck, it's going to make the angle slightly bigger. And that's the point of the correction, is to bring it to 90. But don't say 90.
Angle correction, really?
Well,
the dip correction. But my point was, when you said it's going to be more obtuse, presumably you're referencing what they would claim on a sphere.
No, but same for us. If you do the way in which the eye works, the higher it is, the more the bigger the angle will be. Unless you've got your eye on the deck, you've already got your 90 there, but you're never going to be. It's always above. So it opens up, and that's the mathematical correction across the plane that you're doing. So the question basically is, why is it always negative? Because the angle will only ever be 90 or greater. So it's always going to be a negative.
No.
You have them wrong.
No.
You haven't.
No.
Well, how are you going to make an angle smaller than 90? So you have
either QE or
You're
Brian.
missing what he's claiming.
Go on,
Missing
Brian.
what he's claiming. Yeah, I couldn't answer a minute ago. When he talks about the dip angle, he's talking about the angle, right, the mathematical angle that goes down to their geometric horizon that they then account for mathematically to bring it up to the actual horizon. He's not talking about height of eye correction. He's talking about their dip to their geometric mathematical horizon. And that's what he's talking about.
Nathan, Nathan, I think you got it. Can you take over? My wife's giving me little rubbins right now.
In terms of the angle bit.
You have to be an Anglo-Saxon to know what an angle is, right?
I forgot you were going baller fishing. I was in. Apologies.
That's all right. Yeah, it's just whenever I hear this word from a baller, angle, I was thinking, where are you getting that from?
You get an angle from a flat baseline.
Yeah, exactly. So the moment they start discussing angles in almost every instance, obviously it's got to be contextualised around the discussion of flat Earth debate, but in almost every instance, where'd you get that angle? Where'd you get it? You haven't got that on a sphere for any of the contextual things it's required for when we're discussing it. So as soon as they say angle, say what angle? Where'd you get that? Define an angle. Like I did with virus yesterday. How'd you prove that we're not using non-Euclidean geometry in the place of Euclidean geometry? Well, very simple. You just put a triangle on a sphere surface. Do you? What, two straight lines meeting at a vertex? That's not going to be possible on a curved surface, ever. What are you talking about? So when they say angle, just go, what angle? What angle are you talking about?
Yeah, like that's what I was curious about. Like, what's a natural angle versus a conceptual angle? Like, that's kind of the point of contention here, right?
No, not really, but you're right. You're right on another front. I want dip angle correction citation, please. From anyone.
Akuma won't. They ain't paying me. He won't come off mute, Akuma. Say that.
Nobody's offering to pay him. That's the difference. See, we don't desire his company or request it in any way, shape, or form. The door's open for him to wander in. Yeah, and he has. So what? Should I wander into a bar and go, you know who I am? You should be paying me to drink here. What kind of a dick is Virus?
Right.
I mean, he is fundamentally retarded to make that sort of statement.
I got a light up yo-yo for him if he can answer the question correctly.
What question? Is my mic working?
No.
You can get on to Virus. We all know he's essentially retarded. Is somebody going to give me dip angle correction and citation? Do I got to go to Skype or something? Let me go to Skype. Ooh, I got a bunch of messages in here. None with dip angle.
But you're only laying that down to Coffee House. Nobody else is going to pick up that pattern. Well, maybe they will, but you're clutching at straws, in my opinion.
I don't think anyone's caught this yet. Dip angle correction. That phrase. I want that in citation. How many times I got to say that? I can't break it down any further.
He has to produce an angle.
That's what I was going with, but based on QE's last statement, he's saying we're not picking up what he's putting down. So I don't think that's what he means, Brian.
Okay.
I think it's.
I just want to go ahead.
I was going to say it might be one of those points that's obfuscated in confusion, just so that they don't have to define what they're talking about, sort of like mass.
So he's saying the fact that we actually do a height of eye correction and it's just called dip correction. When they say dip angle correction, that's inferring their geometric horizon, but you're going to need to show that in citation. Right, QE?
Yes. Yes, sir. Boy, you touched on it right there. I think you got it.
Well, I brought up that point a minute ago, they're only referring to our geometric horizon there. But maybe what I said wasn't exactly, yeah.
I think I brought it up a couple of weeks ago, actually, Brian.
You didn't phrase it like John phrased it. John's a master at phrasing things.
It's not that you're getting it wrong. It's where is it? It's like, no, we don't want a repetition. Where is it? Does anybody have it?
Do you not recall to dip or not to dip? That is the correction.
I like Adams just as much. You dip, you die.
I'm still lost as to what John's point is a little bit, and whether it's an incomplete definition. Is that what he's saying?
It's okay. Just go. I'm going to show you. Dip angle correction citation, please, and then post it for Nathan. Then you'll see it.
I know what it is, Adam.
Go on, we've all had a shot. Let's go, Brian. Let's hear it.
So post it. That's what he's saying. Post it.
Just bloody tell me.
No, we're having fun guessing.
I'm trying to.
We're having fun.
Yeah,
Brian.
Yeah.
Go, Brian, go.
When he posts a citation, it's going to involve a geometric horizon.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's the end of that.
No, you're wrong. Look, you got a nope.
Well, I don't know that.
Is his point not that dip angle correction is a baseless assertion fallacy and it doesn't have any real real basis for applying in the first place?
Told me that I was close. Did no one listen to what I said? I'm not going to repeat it because you're still guessing.
We might find out if someone posts something. Like, come on, please.
It's in the
Eli said, please.
It's in the phrase itself. Dip angle.
Right. He said no.
I love it because 10th man's got it just by saying it with a slightly different intonation. Obviously, that's going to get everyone around you to get it, 10th. I get it now, 10th, thanks to your concise, detailed explanation of it. Dip angle. All right. Yeah, I still don't know.
Yeah, because you only can get a dip angle from an elevation angle.
Is that correct?
Nope. Can I ask you a question?
Well, that's how you get a dip.
Gosh, what's an angle?
Two straight lines.
Are you guys not posting the
two straight lines at a vertex?
Eli, hang on. What's an angle, Nathan?
Two straight lines meeting at a vertex.
Okay, so where's the dip?
The dip is the height of eye correction so that you're correcting to ensure you've got a 90-degree baseline because of the assumption that you're using your eye to form
not in that context.
the level plane parallel line.
No. He's basically telling you either refraction isn't a thing.
Then everybody stop over-talking one another.
Not in that context, Adam. That's the correct context of height of eye.
This is what I'm trying to get to the bottom of the nuance.
That's the dip correction.
I'll try speaking again and get the
Look, everyone stop a second. Look, I'll try and help 10th man out for Adam. Dip correction, Adam. Hope it helps.
Right.
You got it, Nathan. I think you got it a long time ago.
Could I just ask
10th got it
in plain
10th
English what the nuance of the question is, please, QE?
I think Nathan and 10th is all over this. My breakfast is coming. I prepared the last part of it. But
let's have another go. Brian, go ahead. Just Brian.
A different intonation to the word. Every
intonation.
Whatever. Intonation.
I got it. Yeah. Hold on. I got it.
Whoa. Got another taken. Everyone calm down. Go ahead, Neil.
That's it, Neil.
Oh, we missed it.
Angle.
No,
Neil heard what I said in terms of the phrasing it with a bit of a different intonation. And he's thought, well, if I do that, everyone will think I know exactly what we're all talking about. So just expand on that for us, Neil.
Dip angle.
Yeah, expand on that for us.
No, it's dip angle.
No,
Arwin's definitely not got this.
That's not the part. No, I know what it is now. It's the word correction. They must correct away from their claimed geometric horizon with this. The dip angle correction corrects away from their maths and corrects to actual reality.
So is it like an intonation correction?
What is it to correct something? Why would you correct?
Because it's wrong.
Hold on. That's away from the point, though, isn't it?
No, but he's right. Brian's still got a good point.
Yeah, but what I think QE might be mentioning is they don't ever give citation for it, so it remains ambiguous in the mind of the person listening, and then they can equivocate between a geometric horizon and height of eye correction.
I think you're
Isn't
there.
that what I said?
You're there. Basically, yes.
I got a question.
That's why I asked for it in citation. Yes, John, you've got there.
I got a question,
Nathan. Go ahead.
I thought we were cool enough to call you Nate, but all right. Is it possible to have light bending and a dip angle all within the same reference? Because I thought it's one or the other.
You have to qualify what you mean by light bending.
Well, like refraction, like to say that. Yeah. Well, yeah. Terrestrial refraction.
There it is.
To say that. Yeah. To say that light bends, right, and then to take that and apply it towards the physical surface of the Earth and saying that therefore the surface bends. It just seems like you're kind of adding a little bit too much there. It's either one or the other.
No, it works perfectly.
And we know
actually.
the surface isn't bending.
You're dealing with two different...
It doesn't have to bend. As long as it seems flat, you can still use a sextant, right? Even though it is a globe.
Thank you, Arwin.
Can I take this one? One?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the site reduction tables and the steps you go after your initial angle measurement includes a refraction formula, and it depends the degrees above the horizon that you're doing it. It's based on that. It's already included in the numbers, so they already have it. But that's real refraction, not Earth bending.
Nathan, just I'm not being retarded. Was the whole point of that then? If you dip, you die.
No, not exactly. So, can you dig out a citation for dip angle correction for me, Adam?
Can I?
Yeah, just have a search, see what you come up with, then we'll go from there. So it might take you a couple of minutes.
Hold on.
Can I fill those minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. To get a better understanding, go to the sextant operation method when dip correction, notice how I said it, is not required. Well, that would be the artificial horizon with a pool of mercury or oil, very steady, not moving, and a bubble sextant, like an airplane navigator would use, where they've already established the baseline with a bubble, so they've already got their flat plane. So in both those methods, dip correction is not allowed or necessary because you've already established the baseline that's horizontal. When you use the marine sextant and you're sighting the actual Earth you're on, the height of eye is the dip correction, so that you are going to get a horizontal, much like what the bubble would give you at your eye level, or the artificial horizon would give you at your eye level. So to dip or not to dip, that is the correction. It's on Mitchell from Australia's channel. Go watch that.
What about dip angle correction?
Well, I don't use those
Shouldn't their
terms,
dip angle be consistent?
What angle?
No, it's tying them down. It's tying them down to the claim they're actually making. That's why you asked for a citation for it.
Precisely.
Because
I'm still.
Hold on, let John explain. Finally, we're at the point where John's going to explain. He's already done it once. I've already nearly got there once. But go ahead, John.
Well, they're like Anthony said, there's an equivocation happening between the height of eye correction and a dip angle to a geometric horizon, but they're going to keep it ambiguous unless you tie them down to a citation. So that is why
guys finally get it.
Hold on, QE. We're just going through it now. Yes, finally.
No.
It's being explained while QE's questioning it, so it's being made less concise by the fundy muting QE's offering. I know it's your point, by the way. Go ahead. Just try once more time, John.
Well, like Anthony said, it'll be an equivocation, but the point of asking for a dip angle correction citation is to tie them down to which one they're using. Is it the height of eye correction off a flat plane, or is it a dip angle to a geometric horizon that doesn't exist?
Right. So I've got that there. Yeah. So it is. If you dip, you're dead, because they're dipping it to make a positive statement that the horizon is the leading edge of a ball.
No.
Is that
not exactly? No. Yes, you're right, but no, because what QE's pointing out is if you're going to equivocate between something, you've got to define what you're actually going to be using. So they need both, don't they?
Yeah.
So what he's saying is once you tie them down to what they claim is their dip angle correction, it's game over.
But if you don't, they'll be able to jump between the two, getting you to chase your tail, trying to get them to, it's almost a pointless exercise. you'd have to explain to them the whole like method of navigation from the ground up. And if you never cite it, then it's we'll just keep.
Yeah, I knew that, and I have to admit, I've enjoyed playing the game of actually try and guess the bloody question.
Well, it's the point that you've been making. You were the first to do this, Adam, with Rufy. So you essentially get him. You didn't insist on a citation, but he provided you one off the bat, didn't he? And then you went Black Swan. What's this geometric horizon you've now defined?
That, is...
Somebody's off mute.
That's probably why I'm a bit confused.
Sleeping Warrior.
I mean, that QE's first lesson, isn't it? Is to let them speak first. Let them make the claims. That's what. That's why I didn't know it was that obvious. Sorry for being dumb.
Let's also not forget that once you take the initial measurement with the sextant, all of the corrections are there to get the true altitude versus the observed altitude. So what does that mean? In a right angle triangle, they need to establish 90, which can never happen on a globe surface. So it's over by the very fact that the corrections are made so that it can be a 90.
Yeah, that was my first guess, right? What angle?
Yes, you had it first, and I thought you were going to run with it, but it was very simple. There were no tricksies.
I said the angle thing, and I was told no.
Yeah, because I came up
Did
with it
Anthony get it?
A couple of weeks ago, I think.
A couple of weeks ago.
Well, can't you get an elevation angle from a altitude angle? I mean, from an elevation angle.
Just say it. Go on.
Can't you get an altitude angle from an elevation angle?
An altitude angle is an elevation angle.
It's the same thing.
Well, it'd be described as a dip angle, though, right?
No, that's a dip angle. No. Sorry, QE. We're both doing the same answers. You go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm eating right now. Go ahead.
No, they're not the same thing. But altitude angle is elevation angle.
Right. Okay. Right.
Let me add to that. One is vertical with the sextant, altitude, elevation. You turn the sextant sideways, and when you're near shore and you want to hit some lighthouses against something else to know how far you are from the rocks that are described in the charts, that's a horizontal angle, but you got to turn the sextant sideways to do that. So it serves for more than one purpose, but whenever you're doing a vertical angle, that's elevation or altitude.
Right. That's what confuses me when they say that you're not using triangles. How do you get the GP of the star if you're not using a vertical line?
You don't.
First of all,
you've got it. Hold on, sorry, Tenth. You've got the essence of the argument, but because you're not necessarily as confident as perhaps you might need to be, you're second guessing yourself when they question it. You just need more dogged determination in terms of how right you are, because you are right.
I want to call on Eli. Eli, are you present?
Yes.
Can you read that article from that sailor who says the angle is between the observer and while you're searching that, let me tell you, when you say they say, that's all we've been showing is what celestial navigation, as Nathan puts it, well documented through the sources. That's who they are, not the anti-flat earthers and what they say, but we're citing the actual books. And Eli's going to read you something that they all agree on, and it will clear your mind as to why they have to obfuscate. Go on, Eli.
1 second. They say we don't use triangles when we're getting angles. I couldn't come in there.
Right, yeah, that's what's the confusing part. Like, you're definitely using triangles.
All angles are triangles.
Right, correct.
They don't understand. The elevation angle meets the zenith angle. Sorry, the zenith from the GP. That is the opposite side of the elevation angle. Then you have the flat baseline, the adjacent.
Yeah, again, give props to QE. He's been saying this for at least 6 weeks. Just ask him what a triangle is.
It's a concept. Where's the physical nature of this angle? It's not. It's all perceptual.
Well, hold on.
Okay, this is the perfect time. This is the perfect time. So, In simplified terms, when we take a sextant altitude of the sun, we're creating a right angle triangle between it, the Earth's surface at the GP, and ourselves. Grade school geometry, Professor Dave, tells us that the two angles in a right angle triangle must equal 90.
Well,
Oh man, that was nice.
I was about to say the triangle is conceptual. It's when you tie it to reality that it becomes a measurement.
Exactly. So, you know, your idea of feet or meters could be described in the same way. It's only when you slap a rule down on something that it becomes a physical measurement of that thing with a conception that you've derived into a convention to be able to verbalize it. But you've still taken a physical measurement, and in this instance, you're measuring the baseline. That's the ground, with the GP meeting it at the ground. So there is very much a physical aspect to it. It's why it's such a powerful claim for us.
The height of why
Eli, I would keep that book, man, before somebody goes in Wiki and tries to change the definitions of triangle.
That's the other good point about this argument. There is no getting away from what must be done. You can't suddenly obfuscate around triangles. Now, they're trying to, but it is deeply embarrassing. Like I say, QE's been saying to us, just ask them what a triangle is and see how far you get. Because that's what it boils down to. It isn't agree, disagree when it comes to celestial navigation. Because it's not like you can say, well, it can be a little bit of a curved line to make an angle. No. You fundamentally don't understand how this is being done in mathematical terms if you say that. It is done flat. It can't not be done flat.
I read the very same citation that Eli just read to Prototad on that one show. I can't remember the number. And Prototad's answer was, that's not how it's done. I don't agree with that. But the fact is, I bought the books, and I've downloaded all the PDFs, over 1,000, I think now, of celestial navigation being described exactly as what Eli just said. So they can try to erase from the internet, but I've got dozens and dozens ready to go.
Yeah. Well, same goes with Glenn, right? Roofy. So he has an issue with Cruising World's description of this process. And what he offered up in response was his own little cartoon. It's like, so it's Roofy, an individual who believes in a sphere, versus Cruising World. Well, take it up with Cruising World. It's done how it's done.
No, actually, that's not entirely true. It's Roofy against the person who wrote books on celestial navigation that Cruising World said, well, you share part of your article on our publication. So he's going against an expert.
There's the rebuttal on screen to Cruising World from Glenn.
Yeah, rebuttal to Cruising World and their descriptions of how celestial navigation is done. And like 10th just explained, Protothad's response to that, I don't agree. Glenn's response, it's not the right citation, I don't agree. You don't agree with how celestial navigation is done. Okay?
Right, and that's how they used to do it with level. I mean, they went in and redefined level. They changed the whole meaning of that. I mean, what was to say what they're going to do with this?
Yeah, you're not going to be able to get around this. Because as soon as you change the meaning of a straight line meeting at a vertices to give you an angle, suddenly you haven't got a Euclidean geometry base for your non-Euclidean geometry. So they can't redefine these terms.
They'll try.
Yeah, they'll try, but back to QE. Ask them what a triangle is and watch how embarrassing their response becomes.
Also, further to the point that 10th was making is not only are they denying celestial navigation, they're denying the model that they're basing their reality on, and that is a celestial sphere model with a flat plane on it.
Yep, so, that's the bit that's got to sting the most. Oh, I love the fact that you brought this up with Kent.
Show screen again, just the quality of rebuttal. It's quite good, these two pictures. So it summarises it quite succinctly, I think. So, it was. There we go. If you see here, look, this is the message. Wrong. This is what's wrong. All this cited, referenced here. This is what's right. Ruif.
That's not a celestial sphere model.
Can I please
say something? What I mean? It's not No, everybody else is wrong. Who's he arguing with? He's not arguing with us. He's arguing with celestial navigation. I'm done.
He's arguing with his own model.
Just let John make his point. Go ahead, John. Can you leave the diagram up a second, Adam? Because I want John to make his most devastating point to date in regards to Glenn's claim that this model is how it should be done. What is this model again, John? Do you want to carry on where you left off?
Well, this model is a contradiction to the celestial sphere model that they're supposed to ascribe to. This is not that.
Yeah, can I just say about it's a mutation of that. That's what it is. A mutation of the celestial sphere model they're supposed to adhere to. But this diagram here, I'm going to start with other diagram, then I'm going to reference something else that was said a minute ago. This diagram here, he has of this diagram, and that is these two parallel lines going to his sun or star, right? That's why he's left out. When I showed it that way, it was called a straw man argument by his side, right? Because I brought those lines to their big, huge sun. But his other one, if you have it there handy, Adam, the one where he shows all the parallel lines hitting the globe out, have you got that one there by any chance? Yeah. You see the way he also hasn't shown the sun in that one. So he's given the impression that the sun only hits this much of their globe. No, the sun in their model is huge and it's covering all one side of the globe at all times. Right? That's where these parallel. Otherwise, you wouldn't have parallel lines. It's not a torch. You know what I mean? It's not a torch that you turn on that's in space. It's a big, huge, massive thing with a huge diameter, way huger than our globe. So he's left out the actual visuals of it, which would show how ridiculous it is. Because this was my point. Where is the GP? That's why he made this. Where is the GP, Ruhiv? You know, he's just placing in, that's the GP there. No, there is no GP with parallel light rays because your light source is way huger than your globe. So it's covering all one side all the time. So there is no GP. There is no GP. And the third thing, and I'll finish then, is the man who said a few minutes ago, I don't know who it was, just heard it, that the angle is conceptual or whatever. Yeah, but the height of eye correction that you make from the deck of a boat or ship brings the vertex of that angle down to the surface of the water. And that straight line is a straight line measurement from underneath the boat all the way to the GP of the celestial body. So it is conceptual, but the measurement in distance is always correct and it's always a straight line.
That parallel sun rays model that was just up, that one is also a violation of the celestial sphere model. That's contradictory to it. I don't know why they would assert such nonsense.
Well, they being Roofy in this instance, but there's plenty of other examples. But Brian's point stands. If you've got a bigger body, how can you claim with parallel light rays that it's over one particular section? You need a local light source to be above one particular part of the land at one particular time in order for it to have a GP. This description puts the GP everywhere on one side of their claim to be planet. There is no GP based on this diagram. Brian's absolutely right.
Go to
what I'm saying is for there to be a claim of these parallel rays, you would need to be able to acquire the angles to assert they're parallel. You need the flat plane celestial sphere model. Where is that? Because this is not that.
Right. They haven't even moved a plane out to this outside tangent point in this instance. It's just a complete violation of their actual model that it's based on, which is the celestial sphere and a flat plane.
Nathan, go to Master B. I got a picture to complement Brian's picture. It includes the moon as well.
Okay.
Brian, you can comment if you like, but it's pretty obvious. If you're going to say parallel rays, there's also parallel rays going beyond the Earth in their model. And in this case, it's showing it's hitting the moon. And then on the dark side of their model of Earth, the moon is reflecting according to their model. But as we know, John just stated, you violate angle measurements from the surface of a curved Earth in the first place. So none of this is true.
Right. What angle?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? This is off topic. I mean, maybe it's going to be the dumbest thing you guys heard me say, but I just thought about it. Does light get dimmer in vacuum chambers?
No.
But why would they assert that space is black
I don't
because
think you
there's
can
no?
have. I don't think you can have a ray of light in without a medium.
You're
ray?
incorrect.
Sorry.
Not to say that light doesn't exist
Hold on.
without.
Hold on. Hold on. You've already laid down a claim, my friend. Ray? What's that?
A beam of light.
And is that how light performs? Is it's in a beam?
No, depending on what type of light, if it's like coherent or incoherent.
Light that's incoherent or coherent? What?
Yeah, i.e. a non-point source like laser beam per se versus a light bulb. You have a beam of light versus an array of light.
There's no such thing. Like when you say ray, people think of like a ray that has no divergence. So that doesn't exist.
Right, rays are a conceptual idea, typically used in computer games, actually.
Right, and even actual lasers eventually diffuse, right? At a fast enough distance, the small beam will become really big. It will widen up. It will weaken, because it's impossible to get
that's
to get
dependent
light
on the
perfectly
medium.
parallel.
I mean,
The
light isn't dependent
frequency
on a medium.
of-
It doesn't need a medium.
It has a medium. The medium is space. It's the less matter it has to go through, the stronger it will remain. Right? That's how it works. Light can go through a vacuum perfectly. No problem.
Well, you're talking about light attenuation or light attenuation. But what about the inverse square law? Like, because even if it was completely a vacuum, the beam would still diverge.
Yeah, I just want to state that they know the distance you are from with a GPS receiver, which uses microwave signals, microwaves is just one step away from a laser, basically. How they know that, let's say, that one sender of the signal is further than the other is due to the frequency. Right, the frequency. It's not like, because frequency will change due to the divergence. So something that was high frequency will stop being such high frequency the further that the signal has to go. That's why there's one of the main reasons why the longest microwave signal in the world is 146 miles. That was the best they could do. They might have done a little bit better, but they've never done anything more than 165.
I think the term frequency is one of those examples of using a convention in reality, but making claims outside that convention to say light's a wave or it requires
Correct.
a medium.
Spot on.
That's one of the dangers you get into.
Oscillation would be more concise.
So when we talk about light as a frequency, do you understand how that concept's been derived?
Are you talking to me? Or
No, the guy who's talking about it needing a medium. When we talk about a wavelength,
I'll shut up.
Do you know how that idea, that way of describing it, has come about?
Yeah, through how the light propagates.
What do you mean propagates?
Basically how the light travels through a medium.
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, could you explain?
But that is your claim, coincidentally. How light propagates through a medium is what you're claiming. A, it needs a medium, and B, it propagates through a medium. That's your claim. But you're saying that your understanding of the way light wavelengths was derived as a convention is because of the propagation through a medium. That's not correct, though. That's not how that.
That's what they do with the ether.
Yeah, I'm talking about visible light.
But maybe look it up. How do they come to those? How do they derive that convention of wavelength? Maybe look it up.
I'm driving right now, man.
No, but for future reference.
I believe it's micro diffraction gradient. And they take the slits and separate them by like millimeters.
Correct.
Or even less.
Correct.
Yeah.
It's the interference pattern, otherwise known as probability distribution, that's then quantified in a convention known as wavelength, based on probability distribution, not propagation through a medium. That's incorrect.
It's also based on the conceptual photon.
Diffracted.
Go on. Feel free.
You talking about the diffracted wave pattern?
Wave pattern. What kind of wave is it?
No, the diffracted wave pattern is seen in like the double slit experiment per se.
Yeah, that's a diffraction pattern. It's otherwise described as it's described as a probability distribution, otherwise known in mathematics as a wave function.
A wave of what?
A wave of probability distribution when described mathematically as a wave function. That's the mathematical term for probability distribution, not propagation through a medium.
Yeah, but to say that light is a wave, and it also travels in a wave.
It isn't. You're not picking up what I'm putting down. Wave function is a mathematical term. There are no waves. There is no medium. That term, wave function, describes, third time, distribution of probability. Not waves, not mediums.
Right. It's mathematical pattern. That's why it's a function.
You said it yourself, diffraction pattern. That's the pattern, right? What wave would be involved? No waves. None. Just whether or not it's likely to hit a point 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, if there's 5 of them in those bands. That's the distribution of the probability where it'll hit next. Sod all to do with any medium or anything to do with waves whatsoever. Wave function, that's probability distribution, yes. That's how you get your wavelengths of light. Sod all to do with waves, though. Actual waves like you get in the sea. Or things that mediums would be described as for light to travel through. This is a misapprehension from many a flat earther because they don't understand what probability distribution is and have reified a mathematical term, wave function, into mediums.
Also, it would help to say probability distribution of a particle, to be more correct.
Yes, correct. I should have put that in there, but I assume it's inferred by what we're describing. But you're correct.
So you think it's a particle?
Say again?
Particle wave duality?
No, it's not. No. There is no particle wave duality. What wave? I've just gone through this 4 times.
Do you think light is photons traveling?
It is. Why are you laughing?
That's the convention that's been tied to reality through measurement. That's what it is.
Photoelectric effect. You ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Meanwhile, it's not a wave. Your whole argument isn't about whether or not photons are real. It's about whether or not we've got a wave, medium you're describing it as. And I'm saying, no, this is just a flat earther misapprehension disseminated by they who will not be mentioned, who I have most definitely corrected them on this, but they still propagate it out because they don't understand maths. Wave function in this instance. So light's not a wave. There is no particle-wave duality.
Right. If it were a wave, then it would be a secondary substance, just like sound is basically the material in patterns, right? Well, that's not what light is. It's not secondary. It's
Neither
its
is it
own
sound,
substance.
just to point that out. That's a misapprehension and a reification of a concept also when people describe sound as waves. No, it isn't.
What?
Sound is not waves. The way that sound has been described in waves is a simplification. It's a convention to describe the propagation of the material we call air when sound is passed through it. However, the idea that it moves up and down in a wave is ludicrous.
Yes, but it is secondary though, right? So maybe it's slightly different from like water waves, but it is effectively secondary. It's there's no sound without the can I finish, please? It's no sound without the material, right? In the vacuum chamber, there's no sound coming through, mostly, right? That's not the same case with light. Thus, can conclude light is not secondary like sound would be.
Okay, fine. When you're comparing it to a medium being required, yeah, I'll agree with you. Yes, you need a medium for sound.
Light, though. Talking about visible light, not light in its full totality, in its full spectrum.
Okay, how does that make any difference to the complete misapprehension from the flat earthers that light needs a medium, when that's just a misapprehension about wave function?
Visible light requires a medium.
No, it does not. What part of the 4 times that I've explained that that's a misapprehension about what wave function is, that doesn't mean light's a wave or needs a medium to have a wave propagate through. 5th time. It's a misapprehension from flat earthers who don't understand what a wave function is.
You're just talking quantum mechanics right now, dude. It's all concept.
No, we're not.
Sorry, you think a wave function's quantum mechanics?
No, I'm...
Sorry, it's not. It's maths.
About
so why are you challenging me and just sounding stupid now? Why are you challenging me on this? That's absurd. Wave function's a mathematical term. So shut up. Don't challenge me. When you think that you are going to describe wave function, a mathematical term that I have detailed to you now 6 times, as science. No. Just sit down, shut up, and don't keep babbling on about this nonsense you've got from other flat earthers that you parrot without knowing what a wave function is, without looking up what wavelength means.
There is no,
shut up! Shut your stupid mouth, flat earther. Shut up!
Photons either.
Shut up! You stupid flat earther. You do not know what a wave function is. You haven't looked up how wavelengths derived, but you've got the audacity to tell me when I describe a mathematical term, wave function, 7 times that you're going to tell me it's science. Sit down, shut your dumb mouth.
Mathematics is
Shut up, bud. You stupid retard. You have no right to discuss this anymore. You don't know what you're talking about. You haven't researched it. You're parroting off the nonsense of other flat earthers. And when I point out that it's a mathematical description, you tell me it's just quantum mechanics, making you retarded. Now sit down, shut up.
Science is not...
It is not science, you dumb fuck. I am sick of this now. 7 times is enough for me to get irritated with you. Stop trying to correct me based on your misapprehensions about what a wave function is. You don't know what you're talking about. Stop participating.
The problem is because they've put this they've put this argument into a false dichotomy. So whenever we just talk about what it actually is, they can't respond to that. They can only respond to the other side of the false dichotomy that they're used to.
It's all model
Nathan's
based.
trying to point that out to you when he's saying it's a misapprehension of what the wave probability or whatever it's called is.
It's all conceptual. Even their statement like light needs a medium. No, it doesn't. There's very logical examples that can demonstrate exactly that it isn't the case, right? You can shine a light through as perfect a vacuum as we can make it, right? And you can't do that with things that like sound. It doesn't work. So it doesn't need a medium to work. It's just a fact. That's a demonstrable fact. Now, all this model thinking about how if it is a wave, it must have a medium, so there's a medium that we can grasp. That's just another dark matter nonsense solution. It doesn't require it. End of story.
Would it be safe to say, as QE did earlier, and I'll make a contrast, dip angle, wave function? Go do some research.
It's not just flat earthers that make that mistake. Most people make that mistake because they just don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah, and that's fine.
They do
that's
use
reasonable.
frequency of.
I just want to drop
they
this
do
in.
use
I'm sorry.
frequency of light as a convention. That
use it.
you know,
It is a convention.
Yes.
It's just a model, another model.
Yes, correct. But that's not a problem. Yeah, I appreciate that most people have this misapprehension if they've got a surface level understanding of light, and then they'll talk about wave particle duality. And that's fine. Yeah, you just don't understand what's being described because it's been described to you outside the context of the maths that's been used to form the convention. Now, if I explain to you the maths that's been used to form the convention to describe light with a wavelength as a probability distribution rather than a physical wave, if you can wrap your head around that, you'll go, oh, right. So not only is it not a physical thing, even the description itself, the convention itself, is just a concept, just a means of describing something that actually happens with light. And what actually happens is where it gets distributed and the probability thereof. Sod all to do with light waves, because there aren't any light waves. It's nonsense. But when you say it 7 times and you get told, no, you're just talking about quantum. No, I'm not. There's nothing quantum about this. In this context, it's just about a mathematical description called wave function. That's it. No science involved. But no, I'm just talking about science. Yeah, way to ignore the 6 renditions of the fact that it's a wave function, a mathematical description to get your convention that's been reified into a wave. That then, what, needs us to describe how the sky is that medium called ether in replacement of space? Oh, what do you know? That sounds just like a false dichotomy fallacy that we should all be arguing about. You argue space is ether. I'll argue space is an empty area that I can travel to the moon through. And nobody will mention that space isn't real and it violates the second law of thermodynamics because you'll be too busy defending ether. Why? Well, because light needs a medium, doesn't it? So we've got to have ether. No, we don't. And no, it doesn't. And you don't understand maths. And you fell victim to a false dichotomy, and you're arguing this crap that you've got no evidence for in the face of somebody who's claiming gravity and space-time, not pointing out how wrong they are, just arguing for some nonsense that some other flat earther told you. Yeah, that's going to serve you really well in debate when you argue about bloody ether. Why? Well, because incoherent dielectric acceleration is basically God, like gravity used to be. So let's argue about how godlike this force is.
It's amazing to me that you're still on the photon thing, but yet you see science has lied on so many levels, but you're still willing to accept photons as the answer for light.
All or nothing fallacy.
What?
All or nothing
I
fallacy.
don't accept the
You're just a
photon. Doesn't mean it's a
fallacy-driven
wave.
machine.
Yeah,
I don't accept it.
Fallacy. All or nothing fallacy. Shut the fuck up. I don't discuss light with flat earthers anymore. That's been my policy. Let me just state this.
Huey, can I ask you a question?
A wave is not what something is. It's what a medium does. And number 2, let's say we go up to that Sandusky, Ohio vacuum and we put a pitching machine in there, right? And we drop that sumbitch all the way down to 10 to negative 6 torr. And we remote control that pitching machine up. Are you saying that fucking baseball's not going to fly across that fucking chamber? Because it needs a medium? Fucking bozos. That's it.
Huey, can I ask you a question? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, can I ask you a question?
You want to ask me a question? Did my question
just
get
for...
resolved? The one between the dip angle correction, by the way?
You're pitching a no-hitter right now. So let me ask you a question.
It wouldn't be the first time.
Let's get some control. Go ahead, Tenth.
In the absence of what, question mark, do we use mathematical conventions? In the absence of what do we have to resort to mathematical descriptions? And then reverse the question, because we have something, we don't need to use mathematical conventions or descriptions. How would you answer that?
That sounds incoherent to me.
Me too. Mathematics and it's just language.
Let me say it another way. If you have to resort to mathematical descriptions, what are you missing in reality?
Again,
reality
I'm
itself.
still kind of lost.
Yeah, I'm not following either, 10th. If you're going to describe something with maths or otherwise, it's just utilising language, which is just a whole group of conventions and concepts to describe one thing to another person.
Okay, let me try it simpler. I fall into a swimming pool. I'm wet. I don't say I'm wet because of this mathematical, construction of words. I know I'm wet. Why do they want to go to mathematical conventions when you know you're wet? You don't. So why do they go to those conventions?
To better describe it, just to make it describable.
It's because there is no real thing out there, right? There is no actual wave, right? If light were waves, then I'd like to see like a light rippling as it moves in its path.
Hold on,
there is no such thing.
No. Stop. We're not talking about waves. Just in terms of what 10th man's laying down. Just because I can describe probability distribution, a thing that can and is described as actually happening in physical reality, doesn't invalidate the mathematical description. It's only when there is only the concept in maths and nothing in physical reality that stands true in your description, 10th.
Well, that's my point. That's exactly my point.
But there is no wave behavior, though. No actual wave behavior in light. That's my point. It's only the diffraction cascade, which is kind of unique to light because it happens a lot with light. And the only other time that we could test anything to resemble that is like with water waves or whatever, right? That's why they called it a wave pattern, because it reminded them of that sort of situation. But it's not a wave-like substance. It doesn't behave like a wave does, right? Other than the diffraction cascade.
Let me take it.
I want to address 10th's point because
go on, John.
You can use words to also describe something that's not happening. They do it with gravity all the time.
Thank you. That's exactly my point, because when Rumpus says it only exists in the maths, that means it doesn't exist in reality.
Correct.
Sure.
But, if it only exists in words, then it doesn't exist in reality either.
Sure, but some things can exist in reality and be described with maths or words.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Right. But then it's, again, back to the miscomprehension that a wave function is actually an indication of a wave. No, it's only there like a flagpole, like, hey, look at this. Doesn't this remind you of a wave?
Yes.
That's it. It's just
correct.
A reminder.
No, I totally agree, and I understand where the misapprehension has come from. But the overriding point here is back to John with whatever the example was previously with a false dichotomy, when all we're being led to do, I think it was gravity and gas go down, go boom, boom, versus incoherent dielectric acceleration causes a downward bias. It's just a false dichotomy that's useful to argue about, so nobody ever points out that there's no phenomena in gravity. Well, this is exactly the same. If we can argue all day about how light travels through something that they claim is a completely devoid of matter medium called a vacuum, versus how it would need to propagate through that exact same area that is actually ether. Sorry, is anybody going to point out that their claim is a second law of thermodynamics violation? That would be that interruption right at the critical point from Neil. So does anybody actually want to stand up and point out that regardless of whether or not you need to make a claim about something that doesn't or isn't required, because light doesn't need to propagate through a medium, it's not a wave, misapprehensions about wave function, stacked up against their second law of thermodynamics violation? So let's argue about this all day in a false dichotomy. Flat Earther claims ether, I claim space. And as long as nobody's pointing out that space isn't real, it violates the second law of thermodynamics. As long as they've got a claim on the Flat Earth side we can argue about, then this will be at worst a draw for the globe head. At best, he'll prove his point better than yours, with ether being total nonsense.
So Nathan,
I just want to step back briefly and just say that anything can be described with maths, real or not.
Yeah. So John, go ahead. And I would like to say something after John.
Yeah, that's my point. Is that entering into the false dichotomy, right, to begin with, and making a claim outside of convention is a trap that I see flat earthers fall into all the time. And you don't have to. There's no need in it. I don't understand why they keep doing it. They keep getting destroyed on it, and it's like they don't even see what's happening.
It's just like the word dip is a poor usage of a word to describe height of eye correction. Wave is also used here, but people think of a different wave, not a probability factor that Nathan and what the whole thing describes when you look into it. So that word is tripping people up.
Right. It's descriptive. Dip is the action of your head turning slightly, right? It's a dip. So it's more descriptive than technical.
But we are given this at the feast of nonsense when we arrive in the subject matter. Here you go. Here's a whole platter of pseudoscience for a flat earth. Check it out. You got experiments, in quotes. You got tests. You got maths. You got all this whole worldview that you can build around this little model. Check it out. It's all here for you. Feast at will. And it's like, hold on a second. I've just walked away from one table full of nonsense food. Should I just start gorging my face on this crap? You don't need any of it. None of it's necessary. You don't need to be making claims at all about anything.
Right, it's just going to be distracting, that's all.
They have a positive assertion the burden of proof is on them. So it's far more advantageous to them if you take on the responsibility and burden of proof for a claim that you don't necessarily need to defend at all, so that you've got a nice false dichotomy for them to argue their point and you to argue yours. Wouldn't it be much better if you go, I don't know what the sky is? I mean, I know we must have containment. There's gas pressure here. I mean, it's an antecedent-consequent relationship. It's not an agree-disagree point I'm claiming. It's just a fact of nature. Gas pressure requires containment. I'm not going to debate that point. What I will debate is you and your fundy belief in a second law of thermodynamics violation sky vacuum. What's that you say? It'd be much easier if I just claimed ether and we argued about that. Yeah, but none of our brethren on the flat earth side appreciate that. They want their faith in ether. For what? Well, to the advantage of the people disseminating the information because they were the first to find it at the Feast of Bullshit. That's basically it, isn't it? They got there first, started stuffing themselves with this nonsense, got really fat, and then decided that everyone else needs to feast on the same nonsense. So they disseminate it like it's true. And everyone laps it up because it's being fed to them by a fellow flat earther.
Well, what's even better than that is the false dichotomy with models. Getting you to claim a model when they're using a flat earth model themselves. It's like we've never pointed that out before, that their model that they're invoking, the celestial sphere, is a flat earth model. That's a big elephant in the room.
Yeah, in fact, I just posted 2 slides in Master V a few minutes ago. Can you go to the one that shows the box, Nathan? I'd like to comment and give kudos to John for really attacking this from his point of view.
Ditto, it's up.
Okay, so what we got here is the way celestial navigation works. You got a 30-degree altitude of that star. I'm sorry, 60-degree. It's small on my phone. So then they minus 60 from 90 to get 30, and then you times 30 by 60 nautical miles, and the GP of that star, where it's at, the subpoint, to the observer is 1,800 nautical miles. Well, how do you know the distance of nautical miles? Well, you need the co-altitude, which is the observer's zenith, which is also a vertical straight line, plumb line of the observer, just like the star has a plumb line. And so you create a box. And so the co-altitude is the zenith distance you see on top, but it has to match the bottom, the shape of what you were taking the angle from, because it's a box, and it must be a 90. So it's right here, right in front of everybody, to see how celestial navigation works. And yet they want to say you have to make a correction for a geometric horizon that doesn't exist. Well, fine, you want to do that? You're still going to have to end up with a flat Earth because it works from a 90. You can't have a 90 on a curved surface. They lose big time here, John.
Any last remarks? If not, I'm going to round out. Nope. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G Plus panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, hitting the PayPal link, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a day! What a lovely day!